right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
A Monday edition of BK and Ferrario with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario as we are with you here on 101 ESPN, fresh off of TMA out in Jupiter, Florida. Some good stuff there earlier today where they had the Wizard Ozzie Smith, Michael McGreevy. I heard Mike Claiborne when I was driving in, so glad the guys are out there, and plenty more audio moving forward this week as they'll be joined by a ton of more guests throughout this week over on TMA. And T-Bone, it's good to hear some of these guys. I know we have some audio from Ali Marmol that we'll be able to get to moving along the show this afternoon. But let's start today with some news from spring training. As Ali Marmol spoke yesterday, I believe it was, Chaim Bloom was on KMOX yesterday as well with Mike Claiborne. And it sounds like this right-handed bat that we have been talking so much about, that we have been speculating of, could they go out and sign somebody? Is it Randall Grichuk? Is it Andrew McCutchen? Is it Starlin Marte? Could they make another trade to go out there and find that right-handed bat to play left field? Sounds like they had this guy in the system all along, and it's going to be Thomas Saggese because they're going to give him as many reps out there as possible. Jose Fermin is going to be getting some reps out in left field because obviously Lars Nootbaar is not going to be healthy to at least begin spring training once the position players are down there. So Thomas Saggese in the outfield, and I got to be honest with you, it's the way I think it should be. As much as we would sit here and talk about the free agents that are out there, of going out there and getting Andrew McCutchen, which I like the idea of, even if he can't play the outfield. I like the veteran presence. Starlin Marte, I like the idea of the veteran presence. Randall Grichuk is the guy that you've brought up. He provides power. Man, none of those do anything moving this thing forward in terms of the rebuild that you're going through. Thomas Saggese is a guy that you traded for. He's a guy that you have put through the minor league system. It's time for him to get the reps, just like it's time for JJ Wetherholt to get the reps, just like it's more time for Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker and Victor Scott to get these reps. Put him in left field, give him the first month or however long it's going to be of Lars Nootbaar's injury, and let him work out there and hope that he turns out to be what you would have just gone out there and paid $5 million for in a free agent signing.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they're willing to do this with Thomas Saggese because of what you said. It's kind of just seeing what you have moving forward. You can bring in a Grichuk, you can bring in a McCutchen, you could have brought in a Castellanos when he was available if you wanted to, but none of those guys really move the needle for what the future holds. If anything, they were what I've talked about in the past, which is a guy that you sign on and hope to trade him for a lottery ticket prospect when we get to the trade deadline. Saggese, I don't know how much I believe really in his upside. I'm not really sure he's much of a big leaguer, but he's going to be given an opportunity. And if he can potentially be a guy that can become a Swiss Army knife for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I love the fact that he's getting outfield reps while Nootbaar is down, and even when he's not, who's the fourth outfielder on this team right now?
Probably Nathan Church, Kaperniak if he makes it.
Those are your options right now for the Cardinals. So I love the fact that they're willing to try this with Thomas Saggese to see if there is a little bit more versatility in his game and a little bit more upside, give him more kind of runway, if you want to use that buzzword again, to see what he's got. I never really understood what they're looking for in a right-handed bat, and they still are searching the market. I don't know who's out there for them, but I like the fact that they are trying to get Thomas Saggese reps in the outfield, because if Thomas Saggese is going to be a guy on a big league roster, he's best suited probably as a utility player, as we've seen in the past with guys like Brendan Donovan and Tommy Edman. That's what his role is going to be in the big leagues, and I like the fact that they're getting him reps out in left field as the biggest development from the weekend, in my opinion.
So this was from Derek Gould's piece over on STL today. The Cardinals want to get Saggese and Fermin innings in the outfield throughout the spring training and the Grapefruit League schedule. Both could see time in all three outfield positions depending on how their initial workouts go with Coach John Jay. Several Cardinals officials eager to see whether Saggese can take a run at playing some center field. Like, I look at what Saggese did last season in 82 games for the Cardinals, and it's nothing that's popping off of the page at you. A .258 batting average with a slash line of .299, .342, .641, an OPS of 82. So he was 18% below league average. It's not crazy good, but it was a small sample size. Also, he's 23 years old. And, I feel like this season should just be labeled for Cardinals fans, time to find out. Because Saggese, although this isn't like a make-or-break season for him in the same sense that I would put it for Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman, because he's only been with the organization for 2 seasons in terms of Major League, and really not even 1 full season if you combine them together. But let's see what he is, because you mentioned Tommy Edman. Maybe you could find a Tommy Edman. Maybe you could find a Brendan Donovan. Or maybe he's just a good bench bat to have that can play multiple positions for you. And honestly, none of those scenarios are bad news for the Cardinals. Let's say it doesn't work out. Let's say he needs to go down to Memphis 2 months into the season. So be it. He's 23 years old, and you put another guy into his position.
Well, Alex, that's the thing. The key number you referenced there, 23, when you're talking about Thomas Saggese, because you still feel as if, you want to feel as if the Cardinals are scratching the surface when it comes to the potential upside there for a Thomas Saggese. First of all, so much for my premise that he would be pushing one Nolan Gorman there at the hot corner, because I did view him. I viewed him as a guy based on what we saw in 2025. He split time when necessary between shortstop and second base, got a cup of coffee at third as well. I figured he would be a mainstay as far as moving around the infield. Am I totally surprised by pushing him into the outfield, getting him reps there? No, because you do like the athleticism, you like the versatility, being able to do more potentially with him. The surprise here, guys, and Tanner, lies with me specifically as it relates to Jose Fermin. Do you want more options, especially early in spring when you don't have a Lars Nootbaar, when you're still trying to figure it out? Are you making way, though? Are you making room for somebody who in parts of 3 Major League seasons has hit the robust total of 220. I thought that they were so enamored with Nathan Church during that small sample size last season that it would be a no-brainer. You'd be prioritizing the reps for him. To throw Fermin into the equation, that does take me back just a little bit.
I don't think it's about throwing him into the equation. I mean, he's going to have a fair shot to make the roster this year just because, like, good luck naming the 4 guys that'll make the bench right now. Welcome to a rebuild. It's more about making sure you have versatility, and that's why Fermin's getting reps in the outfield. I don't think it's about paving a path for a 27-year-old 4A player, as I would call him, a guy that's been good at AAA, has struggled at times at the major leagues, was pretty good in his sample size last year. It's just
Nathan
making
Church?
sure, Fermin. It's just making sure you have that flexibility, because though I say you're in a rebuild and, you know, pick the 4 names you want on the bench, you still got to make sure you have guys that can play each position if injuries do occur, which will happen. So I don't necessarily care about that. The bigger story for me is that the fact that they want that versatility for Saggese. I do find it interesting that Gold had mentioned in his piece, some are interested to see if he can play center field. I'm not sure if I'm there on that, but
I think it's just a backup option.
I agree. And it doesn't hurt to even just test it out in spring training, right? We've talked about this in the past. I don't remember who it was we were talking about. Oh, it was when BK would bring up Gorman being in the outfield probably during spring training.
That sounds
and I would say
like a
that
BK
sounds
move.
Crazy. Just like I would look at Saggese and go, probably not a center fielder, but I could see him in the corners, right? Mm-hmm. And in spring training, why not test it out, right? Just see what it looks like. And there's no better place to really find out than at that ballpark down in Florida, because the wind swirls, so it's tough on outfielders. So you really find out how good he really is in the outfield. But I don't mind it, because they do need some versatility, especially coming off of the bench, because now in baseball, you almost have to have a starting quote-unquote utility player. And if it's not Saggese, who is it? Because Wetherholt could be a little bit by second and third. He's not going to be a guy you're putting into the outfield. Gorman's probably not a guy at this point in his career you're going to put to the outfield. Burley, they're trying to lock into a corner. So who is that guy? And for me, it's Saggese, so I like that they're getting creative and trying to get him some reps in the outfield.
Yeah, and I think if Nathan Church makes this roster, which I don't know if he's going to, I mean, that's going to be another option that can play there for you. But look, it's what you need to do with Thomas Saggese is find out the utility, because if I'm Thomas Saggese and I want to make this roster and stay on this roster, do what Brendan Donovan did. You bring every single glove to camp and expect to the unexpected in terms of where they're going to play. So since we're on the topic of Saggese, this kind of started up in terms of comparison at the end of last season, but mostly in the off season of, you know, could Saggese be, in terms of athleticism, utility, be what Tommy Edman was for the Cardinals? Now, Tommy Edman wasn't anything that was overwhelming at the plate. His on-base percentage wasn't eye-gouging, but what it was he was a guy that you felt comfortable with. He was a guy that every position you'd put him in, he'd do it good enough for you, and he was a good piece to have when he was healthy in the lineup. If I were to sit here and tell you, and we do this game a lot on BK and Ferrario, where you're pressing the button and this is who he's going to be, Thomas Saggese, you slap the button and say he is going to be Tommy Edman. You happy with that?
I would be. I think that's probably what his ceiling could be as a big leaguer. I don't know that he's going to carry a significant on-base percentage here at the big leagues, just because he's more of a free swinger, as we've seen when it comes to him at the big league level, which I like. I don't mind him being aggressive at the plate. It's what Burley was, and then he was able to kind of hone it in. But I don't know that he's going to hit for the average to really bloat up that on-base percentage. And if he becomes what Tommy Edman was, which was like a 250, 260 hitter, get on base around 310, maybe get a little bit of pop in there, a little bit above the 400 slug mark, and you're just slightly below league average, which Tommy Edman has been in his career, 3% below league average, I would sign up for that because of the versatility we're talking about, as long as he can play the outfield. If he can't play the outfield and we find out in spring training, hey, JC, probably not an outfielder, probably just going to have to limit him to second base, third base, and then maybe a little bit like in a pinch backup shortstop. Okay, then he probably needs to be better offensively. But if you give me the Edman versatility and the Edman bat, if that's what Saggese becomes for a guy that you got in the, I believe it was the Jordan Montgomery trade, I absolutely would sign up for that. That would be a huge win for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Let me lock that in right now because, Tanner, you also identified free swinging tendencies. That was Tommy Edman, especially after his second full season in the bigs. This was somebody who continuously struck out almost 100 times per season, but the versatility, the positive numbers from a WAR standpoint, Tommy Edman, guys, as a rookie, had a WAR of nearly 4. In his third season, he was already up to 6, and the sheer number of positions he could play, putting the ball in play for that matter as well. You know you're not expecting this influx of pop from Thomas Saggese, but if he can add outfielder and adept outfielder to his card as well, absolutely lock it in.
I mean, Tommy Edman won a Gold Glove. Like, if you're telling me that you're getting Gold Glove quality defense and a guy that at his best when he was in St. Louis provided you 40 doubles, 10 home runs, and 50 RBI, that's a win.
Yeah. And even if he didn't get the Gold Glove, like Edman, like you mentioned, he's only got 1 Gold Glove. We all know Tommy Edman is a very good defender, right?
It's just
didn't get the recognition sometimes.
Well, and he was all over the place too.
Yeah,
to where he never
they
played
didn't have the utility Gold Glove till what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, and that's when Brendan Donovan won it for the Cardinals. So, like, if you're giving me, and I think it's a great point, T, but if you're giving me excellent defense and the bat is just average, man, I'm okay with that because as we talk all the time when it comes to trades, you're rolling the dice. And when they rolled the dice with Jordan Montgomery, now look, the Jordan Montgomery thing hasn't worked out past the team he was traded to, worked out for him that season. But for the Cardinals, they got rid of a guy who probably isn't going to get back to that form, and they got a young position player who could be a good utility piece for them when they hope to compete, if they hope to compete in a couple of seasons. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. We are live on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. You could jump on over there. Our graveyard chat is underway. Gator is in there, DJ Patty Cake, Sam Johnson, Cat Dad Gamer, so you can join in on the conversation there. Our studio cams brought to you by Air Alliance Team. It's 11:17. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to get into the Olympic hockey action because, yes, despite Jordan Binnington being in net for 2 games and a shaky one against France, I could say that. People are still questioning it. Are they right to be questioning it? That, and we'll talk a little bit about the Olympic format. But coming up next, boy, Bradford, we went into the weekend acting as if Mizzou was going to get us back on board that bandwagon and talk about them being a bubble team.
Trash on Texas.
God, he did.
The game.
Have the crow ready.
And then it just went.
I'm prepared. I'm prepared. Let's do it.
Oh, it went a lot faster than that.
Yeah, no, it went very fast. Mizzou screwed it up. We'll talk about that. And do we find a team that could be a match for Josh Schertz? All that next year on 101 ESPN.
Want more blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and nuggets on your St. Louis Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast now on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
Save big on everything for your next project when you shop at Menards. Be prepared for the unexpected and keep your home powered with Generac generators.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
And the big shots by Pope and Swain, not to mention Boca Titus. And that'll do it in Columbia, Missouri. 85-68, the final score as the Longhorns win their fourth game in a row and find a way here in Como.
Yeah, I guess you could look at that as competitive in the first half. I mean, Mizzou went down into the half by 2 against Texas. And you're thinking like, oh, okay, make this a basketball game. It did not 1 minute feel like it was a basketball game in the first half. With Bradford Bruns and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Mizzou falls to Texas 85-68. Not in a game that was make or break for them, but as close to it as possible because you needed to beat Texas. We talked about this last week. You needed, if you're Mizzou, to make things easier for you on a path to make the tournament, get the job done on home court. You're taking on Texas, who's somewhat in a similar situation as you are. And I think we talked about this, T-Bone, on Friday. Lenardi had it to where Mizzou and Texas were both kind of in that first one's in, right?
Yeah, he had moved. When they beat Texas A&M on the road, he moved Mizzou into what he called him as the last team in.
Yeah.
Well, you were the last team in. Texas had kind of gone in from the last 4 in to like the second to last 4 in. And now Texas probably really pushed himself forward while Mizzou got smacked right back down.
Yeah, smacked right down is the perfect explanation for it because 85-68 loss. They were blown out in the second half by 15 points. I watching that game, and Bradford, we'll start with you because I know you were just talking a lot of trash on Texas going into Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, I never once felt like Texas was this juggernaut of a team to where it's like, oh,
agreed.
Good luck getting into the tournament, Mizzou. This team's going to wipe the floor with you.
It's like when Vandy rolls to town.
Yeah, it's just like that was. I mean, look, for a lack of a better phrase, that was kind of an embarrassing performance by Mizzou, coming off of back-to-back wins where you're building the momentum. We talked about momentum going into the tournament and how dire it was, and then you laid an egg on home court against a team that you're kind of supposed to get the job done against. Bradford, I'm done with them. Unless they wake me up with a victory over Vandy or Arkansas,
finished.
I'm done with this team.
Wow. Okay, I will concur. It was embarrassing in the second half. Now, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it here, guys. You understand, I will readily admit, I had this game down as a win. I'm not going to say a commanding victory for Missouri, but given what you had watched, what you had seen in the previous 2 games on the road, no less, the Tigers had been immersed. Tanner, Alex, you know this, in their finest stretch of basketball this season, after having piled up tournament-worthy resume victories against Florida, against Kentucky. Everything seemingly was coming together, and yet, a lull that wouldn't even be accurate to basically characterize the second half, because we can talk about some of the individual performances. Swain was actually the best player on the floor on Saturday night at Mizzou Arena, and yet numerous members of that Texas supporting cast got it done, and that brings me to my primary takeaway, because other than Mark Mitchell, Jaden Stone, both of whom had quality efforts, not great, but quality on Saturday night, you didn't have a bucket getter down the stretch. And as much as I loved what Dennis Gates did in the previous game, in that road victory against Texas A&M, shortening the rotation, going to 7 players, you saw the chinks, the cracks in the armor when it comes to the depth or lack thereof for Missouri against a worthy team such as Texas. Sean Phillips obviously got into early foul trouble, and yet by the same token, Nick Randall, the freshman, gave you decent minutes, just 9 of them, but decent minutes in the second half. Who else other than Anthony Robinson? Jacob Cruz, the latter of whom was honestly a ghost on Saturday night. To whom do you turn when you need somebody else making that contribution? My concern here is, irrespective of what happens on Wednesday night, and now that home game against Vanderbilt, it looms even larger, gentlemen, because let's just say in Fayetteville Saturday, I'm not feeling great about that one, the first of 2 meetings against Arkansas. It looms even larger, and who else at this juncture is going to step up? Because I've seen great efforts from Trent Pierce. I know he can be that guy. He's lanky. He's got the length. He's got the shooting range and all that too. But right now you have 2 horses on whom you can rely for Missouri, and everybody else kind of falls into that also-ran category. So, yeah, I have more reservations now, but that makes the tilt on Wednesday night that much more important.
Yeah, looking at that game this week, first off, Bradford's right. Now that they've lost that game, they've got a little bit of a hill to climb. Now, they're not eliminated by any means. They've still got plenty of time, and they've got at least 2 wins on the schedule if they take care of business. But here's the problem with Missouri, and we had talked about, and this is why I've been skeptical of them all year. They don't put together any sustained stretches that you look at and go, this is what Missouri is great at. Here's the identity of Missouri. And I still haven't found that. And this Saturday was game number 25 on the season. And I don't know if Gates got out-coached or Texas just completely outplayed Missouri. But in that first half, I watched that game going, okay, I'm not really seeing anything from Missouri to where they're going to solve this Texas defense, and it's not like it's anything special to write home about. But I thought to myself, I'm not going to say they're out of it. They're only down by 2, and they're going into the halftime break. That'll give Gates time to figure stuff out. 5 to 10 minutes into that second half, I realized, they're not going to have answers. Even though the game is close, they're not going to have answers for this game tonight against Texas. It's my biggest thing with them all season long. I just don't see what they're great at or what they're going to go to in a pinch to where we can't solve the Texas defense. Okay, like for Illinois, for example, if they're having some trouble, what do? They say, Wagler, go make something happen. Mm-hmm. Mark Mitchell's kind of that guy, but I just don't see anything from Missouri
that is consistent enough.
Exactly.
And they can't get their best players intertwined at the same time. Like, you can't get the 3 guys that you rely on to be going at the same time. And I don't know how many teams can do that in college basketball. Like, you ride momentum waves, but I mean, that's just it, T-Bone. Like, the guy that you look to and say, you're our guiding star here, we're losing some momentum, turning around for us. I don't know if they have that guy. Plus, their free throw shooting. We've talked all season about it. I mean, Texas took 22 personal fouls, and you shot 68% from the line.
You got 38 shots at the line. That's the thing. And actually, high 60s for Missouri, success rate, conversion rate, that's pretty good.
Yeah, but Texas went 91%.
Exactly. And the most sobering thing here, guys, we talk about consistency. Well, actually, so far this season, in conference play, play, no less. Missouri has been shockingly consistent at actually owning the edge in the rebounding category and outscoring the opposition in the paint. Second best margin entering that game over the weekend against the Longhorns. But you returned to the pack. You regressed in a way, because how did Texas manhandle you down the stretch? Number one, in the paint, outscoring the Tigers 40-28, and you were out-rebounded by 10 as well. If I'm a Missouri fan, I have to admit, even though I still do believe this is a team that can make a run at the tournament, it seems like a bit of an anomaly when you're talking about production in the front court, because I look, Tanner, at the depth beyond a Phillips, beyond maybe you're starting to bring along a Randall, maybe you could put Pierce more and more in the post. Who's going to be able to sustain that figure? Because when I look at the roster makeup, the construction of this Dennis Gates team, I do not look at it as a group through the remainder of conference play that can stay number 2 in the SEC, mind you, as far as scoring margin in the paint. That's not sustainable.
Yeah, we talked about it. We said out of the remaining 7 games, they needed to get 4 wins to put themselves in that tournament. Again, not out of it, but now you got to get 4 wins of your final 6 with, we all agree, Tennessee, Mississippi State. You'd imagine Oklahoma's kind of a toss-up, but then you got 2 versus Arkansas and 1 versus Vandy.
And, I'll add this. They're the most consistency they've had that I would say is their inconsistency. Mm-hmm. They play down to their competition, they play up to their competition. So as much as I want to say, at Mississippi State, at Oklahoma, the second and third to last games of the regular season at the end of February and the 1st of March, in theory, I should say, those are wins for this Missouri Tigers team. We saw earlier this year they barely beat Oklahoma, and they needed 2 buzzer beaters to make that happen. So it's not necessarily a lock for them. Would it shock me if they beat Vanderbilt at home, number 19 in the land? It would shock me, but I'm not. I expect they're going to give them a game because they play up to their competition. They play down. I don't see them. I'm still skeptical they're a tournament team, and I really doubt that they're going to go on any kind of run they get to March. If they're playing in the first 4, or if they somehow get past the first 4, they're going home after round 1, in my opinion.
A team that definitely continues to get the job done is SLU, an 86-59 victory on Friday over Loyola. And it's not so much about the in-game, because I didn't learn anything from that one. SLU's the better team on paper, and they covered that 18.5-point spread. T-Bone, great teams what?
They cover.
So SLU did. The one thing that I did question, and you brought this one up too, T-Bone, is we saw a Power 5 firing in college hoops over, I think it was last night that happened. Kansas State fired their coach, Jerome Tang, after 4 seasons, an underwhelming season for K-State. They're 10-15. But they fired him under the claim that he violated the terms of his employment contract by publicly criticizing his players for lackluster effort. Not the way you want to go out, I would imagine, if you're Jerome Tang. But is this the type of team that could pull Josh Schertz away from SLU? Because once a team like this opens up, and I get it, it's not like a dominant one, but it's still a pretty big name. This is what happens, because the moment this opening happened, everyone from K-State's side starts saying, well, Josh Schertz is a possibility.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know if this is the job he takes. If he wants to leave SLU, maybe he decides that they're the team, and if they go to the Big East at some point, maybe he says this is the team for me. But I don't know. It's an interesting job to keep an eye on for Schertz, because we've talked about his most recent jobs have been kind of in the Midwest. Like, he came from Indiana State. This is a Midwest gig. I think we agreed Kansas was that last week in the junk drawer.
Oh, yeah. No, Northeast.
But it's not like, you're right, they're not a blue blood program. But they've given some good resources to Tang when he was there to try and build that roster. 2 years ago, they went out and they gave Hawkins, the guy from Illinois, a huge bag to come play for him, and it disappointed. He just missed in the portal with what he was doing. So they've given enough resources to help him try and build a roster. So if you get a coach like a Josh Schertz in there, he would make sense. If I were to say what I think the odds of him taking that job are, I'd say less than 50%. If I'm him, I would try and hold out for a better gig rather than going to K-State.
Yeah. Kind of where I'm at.
I think it's pretty fascinating, because to think about how the culture in particular in Manhattan has absolutely plummeted in the course of not even 4 full seasons. You go from qualifying for the Elite 8 in Tang's first run to, over the weekend, removing the names from the back of jerseys and fans in the stands with bags over their heads. That's how far it has fallen. But by the same token, Tanner, you talk about resources. You talk about pooling those resources and allocating funds. I do believe Kansas State is in more then in ample position to be able to do that. And in the Big 12, really a hotbed their basketball conference has been consistently now for decades on end. I see the intrigue and I see the appeal there of somebody who, as much as we talk about the on-court performance, what SLU has done in jumping out 224-1 this season under Josh Schertz, what do you hear about the most consistently? I would contend the culture, right? The demeanor, the personality, in need of a transfusion there at K-State. I think Schertz is that guy. It should be appealing at least.
Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll get questions and answers. You send us a question to our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll get those answers coming up in 15. But coming up next, Jordan Binnington went 2-0 in play for Team Canada. Logan Thompson picked up the other win. Canada's got that number 1 seed going into the elimination games for men's hockey. But people up in Canada are still questioning if Binnington's the right guy to get the start. We'll discuss that and the Olympics itself. T-Bone's a little bored with them. We'll figure out if there's a way to fix it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. Basketball is on ESPN. Tonight, Duke and Syracuse. Pre-game at 5:30, tip-off at 6. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
First full squad workout in Jupiter. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns with a Sports Center update powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The wait is over as spring training officially gets underway from Roger Dean Stadium. TMA held court at Cardinals camp earlier this morning. Franchise icon Ozzie Smith hit leadoff, lauding some of Mason Wynn's rare skills.
Great work ethic, great fundamentals. When you make it here, you're here for a reason. And, I think that's all starting to show now. And from this point after last year, it's just see how much better he can get and how long he can hold on to it.
Michael McGreevy also joined us. Find those interviews all week on 101ESPN.com. College hoops, number 8 Illinois pummeled Indiana Sunday. Texas previously did likewise against Mizzou, 85-68. Women's hockey, Team USA seeks another dominant victory. Hillary Knight and company currently leading Sweden 5-0 midway through period 3. Your SportsCenter update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So the preliminary games are now officially kaput in the Olympics for men's hockey, as you have the play-in games or the play-in matchups that start tomorrow, and then you'll get the first elimination games that begin on Wednesday. No surprise, Canada is the best team going into the tournament. They won all 3 games. They had the better goal differential, which put them at the top. And Jordan Binnington was in between the pipes for 2 of those games. He beat, I think the first one was Denmark, if I'm remembering this correct, T-Bone, or Latvia. I don't know. All of these preliminary ones go together. Czechia. Okay, thank you. And then the second one that he played was against France. Gave up 2 goals against France. A couple of those were pretty soft, I guess, if you're going to wonder about Jordan Binnington. And then Logan Thompson got the middle start for Team Canada. Elliot Friedman said earlier today on his podcast he believes that the goaltender that they are going with moving forward is going to be Jordan Binnington. I'm going to read you a snippet, T-Bone, from the Edmonton Journal, and tell me if this surprises you or not.
Okay. Right.
Quote, Binnington got a rough ride from some Canadian hockey fans after letting in 2 goals against Team France, one after kicking out a big rebound, the second after missing an outside shot. This comes as Binnington has been one of the weakest goalies in the NHL this season.
That's true.
That to change anything for you? Nope, all of those were very true. One, I take Friedman into a group of 2 credible insiders in the NHL, someone who strives to get things right. He says Jordan Binnington is going to be the guy. Canada's other goaltender, Logan Thompson, has been the better goaltender all season long. In this tournament, Jordan Binnington getting the start is, quote, laughable for Team Canada if they want any chance to win this tournament. Team Canada's guy, in quotes, should be Logan Thompson. He's been the better goaltender in this tournament and been the better goaltender all season long. That's a piece from David Staples of the Edmonton Journal. I shouldn't be surprised by this, Tebow, when I read it, because I think everybody going into this tournament, it didn't matter if Jordan Binnington posted 2 shutouts. They would be saying Logan Thompson needs to be the goalie moving forward because Binnington probably gets everybody nervous because of how he's performed this season. He gave up 2 goals. One of them was a little bit concerning if I'm Team Canada for France. That first one that they scored, and really that came off of a turnover from Colton Parayko, bad rebound control into the back of the net. The second one, it was already 7-1. It's hard for me to look at it and be like, come on, man. But it was a shot from the faceoff that let go by him. You can't do that if you're Jordan Binnington. This shouldn't surprise anyone, so I'm going to put this to you guys more than me. I think the right decision is to let Jordan Binnington play. And I know people are going to be upset because if they lose in their first matchup, which I don't think they're going to, then everybody's going to be like, what the hell are you doing? But they're going to have to eat that if they go with it. But Jordan Binnington got the shutout in a more competitive game in the preliminary games versus what Logan Thompson did in his game, where he gave up a soft goal that was a slap shot from the blue line, I think his shot was. So I think they're going with what got them there at the Four Nations tournament. Be damned if it goes against them, but I have no qualms with Jordan Binnington starting. You just hope he's locked in once the elimination starts.
Yeah, and I get he gave up 2, really, I'd call one softie. One was a juicy rebound that, in theory, Parayko would have cleared out of the way, but he didn't. And it was like watching the Blues. But I think he's the guy. I look at Team Canada and go, okay, well, who are you replacing him with? You mentioned the other goalkeeper that was in that piece, and Thompson, who got the start. Okay, cool. So he made 25 saves. I get it. Okay, now he gave up one goal. Okay, so let's think about, okay, what was that goal? Was it like tipped goal? Was it like bodies in front? No, it was from center ice.
Yeah.
It wasn't the blue line. It was from center ice that he gave up the goal.
That's even worse.
Yeah, there's no excuse for that. So Binnington is the guy for me for Team Canada. I think you saw in that game against Czechia. We talked about it. I think Kerber might have been in studio with us, or he was just coming in to studio with us last week when we were talking about it. That was the big game winner that you had seen before, where he was making the big-time saves, because it's not like that Czechia game. They didn't give up any grade A opportunities.
No, that was probably the toughest competition they had in the tournament.
Exactly. So you're really seeing Binnington, I think, play well. Yes, he did give up 2 goals yesterday, especially that second one he'd won back. I'm kind of with you. That game was over at that point. I wouldn't look too much into it. I still expect he's going to come away and make the big saves when necessary, and I still think his stock's going to rise a little bit on the trade market for the St. Louis Blues because of it. Now, will they make the move? I don't know. We had that conversation on Friday, depending on what you get. But I have no qualms of Jordan Binnington, and he looks like the guy I saw at the Four Nations tournament.
Yeah, you can't totally omit what happened yesterday. There were a couple of gaffes later in the contest when Canada already had sealed that thing up, okay? But the key distinction here, the manner in which Canada opened the tournament, talking about that Czechia game. Guys, shortly before we came on the air that morning, we were watching as Binnington in the first period repeatedly sprawled out, making quality stop after quality stop. He hasn't done anything so far in this tournament that would basically dissuade you from going in the other direction, making Logan Thompson the guy. Yeah, couple of slip-ups as yesterday's game went along, but otherwise really stellar in net. And that's the thing. If I had been looking for reasons, specific reasons as to why Binnington shouldn't be the guy moving forward as you get into the quarterfinal action, you haven't had an abundance of that evidence so far. That's different than being questionable period in and period out.
Yeah, I looked at that game against France, and they had already gotten the job done because their goal differential was superior to what USA could do, so they locked up that number 1 seed. Do you want them locked in at all times? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not concerned about an elimination game in the Olympics for Team Canada as I am in a preliminary game that didn't matter when it was already 7-1 for Canada against France. But look, they'll have a tough matchup, if you want to call it tough. I mean, they're going to take on either Czechia or Denmark, depending on who wins in that qualification round. But you go with the guy that I think is more locked in than what Logan Thompson would be. So, and this isn't to sit here and put down what Logan Thompson has done. I think if for some reason it doesn't go well in a period for Jordan Binnington, they'll pull him. They'll put Logan Thompson in. They got the offense to pull themselves back into a hockey game if things don't look right for Jordan Binnington. I'm not concerned about that at all.
Do you think if he gave up 2 soft goals, quote unquote, like the one we saw in France, the second one, if he did that in the first period of their first elimination game, would they go to Thompson?
I think he'd have to give up more than 2. I think he'd have to give up 3 or 4 for them to pull it.
I don't know if you can go that long.
I think they look at it as our offense will pull us back into any hockey game. If it's 2 softies, I think you start thinking about it, and you probably look over to Thompson and says, if one more goes in, you're going in. But, man, I don't know. I really don't.
Maybe in their first game you can get away with that, but I think if it's 3 or 4, then you have to go to somebody else when you get to the semis, because you're not going to get away with that against Finland or Switzerland if you run into them in the semifinal.
Yeah, Finland, Slovakia, Switzerland. If you get any of those matchups, you're not going to take a chance with it. I don't think 2 gets it done, though. I think it's going to have to be 3 in a period for it to be soft for them to say, all right, we need to get them out of there.
The reason I asked that question is I think 2 could be the magic number, but I think it would have to be 2 in 2 periods, 1 in the first, 1 in the second, and you're down possible. 2-0 or 3-1, and you're looking for a spark to get Team Canada going.
You're going to have to feel the vibe of that game, too. If it feels like the other team is just night and day better than you right now, which is wild to even suggest with how good Canada is, it would have to be something that is very obvious to pull Jordan Binnington in the game. I just think this is John Cooper going with the guy he trusts. And again, it could backfire horribly. And Canada, the favorite for everyone, could get bounced in the first or second round if they do so. But I'm just not concerned about it at all as much as Canada is and a lot of people on social media are. Speaking of concerns, I don't know how locked in you guys have been. Like, I've been in and out of these preliminary games. Like, I haven't been as like locked in from start to finish at 5 a.m. as you would imagine, because look, it's preliminary matchups. Some of these games are fun. Some of these games really don't matter.
You weren't up for Denmark, Latvia?
I can't say that I was.
Or Switzerland, Czechia?
I've woken up a couple of times early to watch some games.
You call yourself a hockey fan?
For shame.
Don't you dare for shame me in this segment, Bradford.
Shame. Shame.
It's been, I mean, it hasn't been the most entertaining Olympics from start to finish.
I'll say it. It's boring.
I don't think that's going to be a problem come Tuesday.
Oh, I still think it's going to be. None of these teams in Tuesday's games are anything to write home about.
Come Tuesday, when you start to get like elimination type games that need to get in, and then Wednesday when you get the quarterfinal round, I think we're going to be singing a different tune. This is what I believe amps the Olympic play up another notch.
What's your number one? Are you feeling France, Germany, or Latvia, Sweden? You've got a 4-pack tomorrow, all of which should be pretty competitive.
Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, Sweden. That's how I go through those 4.
Yeah, I don't think any of these games are going to be worth watching tomorrow.
You're crazy, man. Tom Wilson got into a fight against France.
It was like 10-2 at the time.
That's even better.
I don't know if it's just my previous memory had remembered it being as these would be closer than I was expecting.
I think you remember elimination games.
This has been so boring so far at the Olympics. Canada's kicking the crap out of everybody. The U.S. is kicking the crap out of everybody. Even some of these smaller games, like Finland put up 11 on Italy. And I get it. Italy's only in there because they are hosting the Olympics. I have not found much of this tournament to be any of that entertaining.
Italy beat Sweden in the first game.
Not really. I mean, they were dominated in terms of shots. Like, this has just been pure domination in basically every single game so far. And I kind of expect that to continue. I don't think we're going to get good hockey till we get to the semifinals.
Okay.
And then you might start to see the best on best. But if there's like an upset along the way, like if Slovakia somehow beats, I don't know, or let's say Germany somehow beats Slovakia in the second round, Germany's going to get killed by the United States. You know how I know it? They just killed them yesterday. So I have found the Olympic tournament so far to be kind of boring.
I think you're watering down the elimination games and how much goes into that versus preliminary matchups.
I don't know. I don't see some of these teams like being able to compete, and then that's just because they don't have the NHLers to do it.
Yeah.
So basically last season, in much of the same way as John Cooper, he was waiting for nearly 360 days to announce Binnington as his number one goalie. We've been waiting for the same amount of time for the inevitable collision course, Canada and U.S., for all of the marbles. We act as if this is surprising. This is what we had foreseen the entire way.
Just get there.
You've got some trailers. Hey, you need the trailers. You need the initial projects, and then you get the main attraction. We know what we're going to get. We just have to be a little more patient, Tanner.
I think it's going to be great, and I got to be honest, I'm so happy that I'm on vacation for the next 7 days because I'm going to be tuned in for
all of these. To go to the park and not watch it?
No.
That's what I would do.
That'll be in the afternoon in the middle of Denmark and Czechia versus Sweden and Latvia. Tanner Hendricks and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's get to your questions and answers. You send them over via our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll answer them next year on 101 ESPN.
St. Louis Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with a First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union.
Take your best shot with First Community, and presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the HVAC company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. And when it comes to your older unit, if you have one of those, boy, you need a company that is going to provide the best care for it. Because like most people, you don't want to buy one. You'd like to try and maintain it as long as possible. That's where Classic Air Care comes into play. They got something called the maintenance program, to where twice a year they come out fall and spring, check the unit, clean it, fine-tune it, make sure it's good to go. And then if any issues pop up throughout the 12 months in between, or the 10 months in between, I should say, then you get priority scheduling with Classic Air Care. But February is a great month to purchase a new HVAC system because of the price slash that comes with it. So you can check out their financing options that they have online. They actually have an HVAC system quote on their website at classicaircare.com that you could just answer a couple of questions and you'll get the price right there on your internet browser. But they'll also throw in a water heater if you purchase a new system in the month of February. So you can call them or schedule online. Just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. That's Classic Air Care and classicaircare.com.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a pair of passes to the 2026 State Farm Missouri Valley Conference Men's Basketball Tournament, hitting the court at Enterprise Center March 5th through the 8th. March begins here with the Arch Madness of the annual MVC Tournament, featuring an 11-team field. All session and single session tickets are on sale now.
Get all the details and enter to win free tickets for Arch Madness now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also, our YouTube channel over at 101 ESPN STL. The Graveyard Chat is where you can join in on questions and answers. You send us a question, we'll get to them. We'll go a little bit over the timing that we're supposed to because I've done some terrible clock management, which is no surprise to anybody who listens to BK and Ferrario. Let's start with this from Dickie O in Cedar Hill. Do you believe, how likely is it that JJ Wetherholt could win Rookie of the Year?
I think he'll have a chance. How likely is it? It's tough to say because it depends. Is he coming here straight out of the gun, out of spring training? Are they going to try and play the manipulation clock a little bit with him?
I think that's the only way he wins Rookie of the Year is if he's here right away.
I agree. And the other thing, too, is it's so hard to win Rookie of the Year. I mean, even great prospects in the past, right? And guys that are studs now, you guys would agree. Bobby Wood Jr. is stud, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bobby Wood Jr. didn't win Rookie of the Year. He got 4th, and he was 2% above league average. It's hard to be ready to go at the big league level, and I get it. BK's pushback to me would be, well, he's been at the college game already, so he's a little bit older than a guy coming out of high school. I think he's got a chance, but it's not as high a chance as I think people are expecting.
Yeah, and here's another thing also working against Wetherholt as it relates to potential hardware, about which I don't care whatsoever, to be honest with you. But you have to be special in one statistical category, namely home runs. That's not going to be JJ Wetherholt. Think about last season. Look at the American League. Kurtz stormed onto the scene, hit 30-plus bombs, had an OPS of over 1,000, right? If JJ Wetherholt is rock solid but not spectacular in any of those categories, even if he posts a 280-plus batting average, I don't know if that's enough to wow the voters, especially if he isn't here for all 162.
Where did this one go? Here it is, 314. What's your biggest if that could happen that would lead to the Cardinals being more competitive than currently believed?
Oh, that's
the biggest if that would happen for the Cardinals to be more competitive than we expected.
I actually think it probably starts on the offensive side of things. I was
thinking the same thing, but which player comes to mind? Or is it a group thing? Because my original question was if Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman finally falls into the expectations that were placed on him, but I actually wonder if I should go bigger with it and say if the Cardinals have more power than originally believed.
Yeah, I think it's probably those two combined was kind of where I was thinking. If Walker and Gorman can put this together and get to what their potential was, or even I don't know, at this point, would you say 80, 75% of what their potential was? Now you're talking about a lineup that it's hard to find the guy that's below league average then, right? Mm-hmm. Because you look at catcher, you know Herrera's going to be that. Burley's going to be that at first. Your hope is Wetherholt is that. Wynn, I think, is going to be right around league average, so that would fall into that. Gorman, if that's the case. Newbarn left, I'm expecting a bounce back. And then right field, if Walker gets there. I just named 8 of their 9 positions. Scott, I would be skeptical of, and I didn't say DH mostly because I can't name the DH right now. So, I mean, that's a lineup that I don't know how great it is, but it's a bunch of guys above league average, and that's not going to be awful. So I think the biggest if for me would be if Walker and Gorman are able to get back to what we thought they were going to be, then their offense is going to be better than we expect, and I think that could carry them.
I like this one from Vizini, who said, if the outfield has 60 home run and drives in 220 runs.
Ambitious.
Right, 60 home runs in the outfield. My
love it.
God.
Well, 20 apiece. Yeah,
Yeah, who's hitting? Yeah, well, I don't think Victor Scott's getting you 20.
Yeah,
I don't think Walker's making up the extra 10.
If we're going by the aggregate, who knows how many other guys will get
and
time in the
we just
outfield.
talked about Thomas
Saggese,
Saggese.
5.
Yeah, so 60 between like 6 guys.
Did you say 220 RBIs?
220 runs, it said.
Oh, 220 runs. Okay. Even then, that's still a lot for, I feel like.
Yeah, that's maybe.
Yeah, right, that's a really big if,
can we consider Alec Burleson still an outfielder?
Sure.
Why not? So there you go. First base / outfield.
I think that's the kind of ifs we're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah, they're massive.
I won't lie, since there's literally nothing been going on for the last week and a half, when we're trying to come up with Cardinals ideas, I have had that intrusive thought of should we do a segment on what would have to go right for the Cardinals to get to 82 wins? I was like, man, we don't have 45 minutes to go without a commercial break for what has to go right.
See, for me, it's the pop followed closely by the pitching, because what if, let's get optimistic here, let's have some fun with it. What if Dustin May is healthy for the duration of the season and shows you the stuff capable of being a front end of the rotation guy? What if Matthew Liberatore, okay, perhaps one-year deal. You love that. What if Libby actually grows into that presence of being a premier-ish left-handed guy who can give you the innings? What if you have Michael McGreevy accepting that baton, going in the range of 180, and then you don't know. Maybe you have a wild card such as a Kyle Leahy who was able to develop accordingly. I think you can play that same game with rotation.
Let's do the final one before we hit our break. From average size Shabungas, how likely do you see the Blues going on any run that shows us promise of the future for not just this year, but for years to come post-Olympics?
I would be shocked. I don't know about you. Mostly because, I don't know what they're selling off.
I think before they go on a run, they're going to trade pieces.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be worse post-Olympic. I know it's hard to believe. I think there's a chance they're worse post-Olympics than they were pre-Olympics because of all the pieces they moved.
I got to be honest with you. My intrusive thought is that they're not. My intrusive thought is that they play better than what they did in the first chunk, and they ruin their chances of getting a top pick.
Yeah, I don't see it. I get look, Thomas is back, right? Let's assume they don't trade Thomas. Thomas comes back, but you potentially have to replace Falk on your right side, which means you've got one of Mayu or Tucker in your top 4, or Kessel potentially. If you move Suter, now you're talking about, okay, so Booch is your third line center, and he's been good at that position over the last 10 games. I wouldn't bet on Booch being good at center down the home stretch of the season. And outside, and then you move Braden Shen as well. If you potentially move Jordan Binnington, I just don't know where I see a path where they get better. And honestly, I haven't seen them play better hockey for any stretch this season.
They haven't been consistent all season. They have got 5 games before the trade deadline, and I don't think you make up any ground with you play Seattle twice, you play Minnesota, San Jose, and New Jersey, and probably 2 wins in that stretch, maybe 3. And then is when the sell-off happens on March 6th. And then, you got a pretty tough schedule in terms of you're on the road a lot in the month of March and April, including a lot of back-to-backs, and you take on a lot of playoff caliber teams versus what you played the easier portion of your season or your schedule prior to that Olympic break. So I would put it less than 20%. I think individuals could get you excited about the Blues' future rather than just the team itself. And we'll talk about some of those individuals a little bit later on in the show. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we've already got the player who's in the best shape of his life, or in spring training, the best shape of spring training. Are you ready to buy stock into this one? We'll discuss that, and if you could sprinkle some pixie dust on one guy to get a breakout season, who is it? We'll talk about those next here on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return.
Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. And the latest episode has us turning our attention towards a period of history that barely needs exaggeration. The earliest days of the automobile. It's incredible how history itself can feel unbelievable once you strip away the myths and look at what actually happened. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode where we dig in on the chaotic, experimental era of the invention of the car. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts, locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario on BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It's 12:10. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. So as we usually get in spring training, once things get underway, you always have that one candidate who came in the best shape of his life, or the one guy that comes in is, he's doing stuff I've never seen before. He's ready to go. He's the one I'm optimistic about. This time it's Dustin May. And I got to be honest with you, T-Bone, when I saw him say it about Dustin May, I was frankly a little pleased because I really didn't want to hear it about Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman. Those are the two. It's like, God, just please don't tell me they came in the best shape of their life.
Walker's been that candidate. That guy is built.
We've done this before. We've done this plenty of times, whether it has been Jordan Walker, whether it's been Lars Nootbaar, whether it's been Dakota Hudson. Yes, I remember the Dakota Hudson era. There's always one guy that you go into spring training with that they try and pump up. This time it's Dustin May, and this is what Ali Marmol had to say about May over the weekend. Quote, I'm counting on him having an incredible year for a lot of different reasons. You look at the timing of the injuries and coming back from it, and then the esophagus injury, and then him going into last year, you talk about competitive nature. The guy came in probably 20, if more, pounds under what he would normally pitch at. He competed at that weight last year, did not feel like himself, and this is the first spring where he's coming in, not rehabbing an injury in a while, or trying to get back to his fighting weight, like he feels normal. And a lot of the conversation prior to signing him and getting to talk to him, it was pretty clear that he hasn't felt this way in a long time. So, yeah, I'm extremely optimistic. It's Ali Marmol speaking of Dustin May. I'm willing to buy stock into that, T-Bone. And here's why. It's not the typical Cardinal pump-up. It's not the typical guy who had a bad season last year in the organization. And they're trying to sell you more of, well, I know he was in Memphis for 2 months last season because it wasn't right, but he went into the offseason and he did everything he needed to do, and now we're excited about it. No, this is a guy that was brought in from outside the organization as a free agent who knows he hasn't lived up to his own expectations of what he had early on when he was with the Dodgers. He's dealt with numerous injuries, the strange one that was the salad injury with his esophagus. This guy's battling against himself rather than the security blanket of, hey, I'm 23 years old. The Cardinals aren't going to move away from me. I got time. No, Dustin May is on, a 1-year deal with an option beyond that? He knows that if you want to keep your major league career going, this is your chance to prove it. And you're not going somewhere where you're just falling in line for a rotation. I think they brought him in and said, hey, you're going to be our clear-cut number one because we don't have anybody else that's living up to that. So if there was one guy I was willing to put stock into, it would be Dustin May, because this guy's got to go against a lot of different entities to get back to that level, and I'll be curious to see how he fights against it.
Yeah, I would buy stock in him as well. And the reason for me is I do think that 20 pounds being down is a difference. And the fact that he's brought that back up, like you look at his sinker, which has been kind of his best version of a fastball to this point in his career. And 2 years ago, back in 2023, that was at about just a little over 96.5 miles per hour on average. Last year, it was down about 2 miles per hour. Now, that doesn't sound like it would mean a lot, but as Ali kind of said in that quote there that he's alluding to is, it does play a little bit to where he couldn't really rely on that fastball. And you look at that sinker for him in 2023. Opponents hit 161 against it, and they slugged 250 with an expected slug of 341 against it. Last year, that sinker was clobbered. 294 batting average against it, slugged 567. Now, you could make the argument of, well, Tanner, that's just because it was a smaller sample size in 2023. He only made 9 starts. It was a bigger sample size this past year, where he was able to be a little healthier in 25 games, 23 starts last season. I just think he never really was able to regain it. And as we know, when you get in season, you can't really put weight back on. So if he was down 20 pounds from last season, I do think that's what really affected him. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and be a true number one guy that any team's going to be knocking on your door to really acquire him at the trade deadline. I think a healthy Dustin May, though, can be a guy that a contending team looks at as like a number 3 high upside or number 2 starter for them. So I would bet on him, because when I've watched him pitch in the past when he was with the Dodgers and with the Boston Red Sox, even last year, I would watch his starts. And I would tell you and BK, I'd watch him and go, the stuff moves. Something's just not right. And I wonder if it was he was down 20 pounds and his fastball and sinker weren't anything that he could count on. So, yeah, I'm with you, Alex. I would buy stock now in Dustin May.
And, Tanner, I'll go back into the Wayback Machine even more. I will take it back to 2020. I will take it back to his second season in the bigs, because if you're telling me that this guy was good enough at that point in time with just a handful of games under his belt to pitch in 7 games for the team that won the World Series championship, I mean, that says enough to me. The stuff has always been undeniable. It's been a question, rather, of whether he has been able to be that guy to take the ball every 5th day and go out there for you, because ultimately that's really what spelled his demise, I think, in Los Angeles, too. The fact that he has never at any point in his still rather abbreviated Major League career appeared in more than 19 games in a season. And yet you still are tantalized by the stuff. You were tantalized by the promise. He's only 28 years old. This is essentially a no-pressure situation in the grand scheme of things. If ever he were to reclaim his spot really as a guy who is still on the come-up, still on the ascent in Major League Baseball, you do it here at the front end, presumably, of this rotation.
Yeah, I mean, even go beyond that year where he was Rookie of the Year candidate that you're talking about, Bradford. I mean, right, 2 years ago. I know it was only 9 games before the injury took place, but 48 innings thrown. He had 34 strikeouts. I mean, he had a 2.63 ERA. This is a guy, I don't know if he's going to get back to that, but I can buy stock into what BK has told us, to where could he go out there and do what Sonny Gray did last season, to where he gets 180 innings and has a sub-4 ERA? Yeah, I could buy stock into that, because he's got nothing else to do. His back's against the wall. And those are the guys that I typically would bank on if I'm a Cardinals team, rather than talking about a Jordan Walker in the offseason making adjustments or anything like that. But T-Bone specifically, if you are able, I'm giving you the power to be Tinkerbell here.
No.
Yeah, you get to be Tinkerbell. You get to put on the leotard, the wings, and everything.
If the shoe fits, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't think I need the leotard.
You get a bag full of pixie dust.
Okay.
You get to sprinkle it on any player on this Cardinals team, and they have a breakout season. Who are you picking?
So I only get to do it once.
You only have enough pixie dust for one.
And because I believe JJ Wetherholt doesn't need my pixie dust,
Ooh.
I'm not going to go with him.
Wow.
I would actually put this on Jordan Walker. And the reason that I would do that is because I am hopeful that if he bounces back and this pixie dust works and whatever adjustments they've done this spring, I've lost track of what adjustment we're on and what our adjustment is, then you can get back to having a guy that's 13% above league average and can have 20 home run to 25 home run upside. If they're able to figure him out, everything starts to settle in a little bit easier for the St. Louis Cardinals, right? You hope Wetherholt becomes a star. You've got your right field spot figured out with Jordan Walker, so you can move Joshua Baez over to left field. You have to figure out, like, third base, for example, with Nolan Gorman, but you know you got the middle set up with Wynn and Wetherholt. Mine would be Jordan Walker, that they finally get this to click, because guys, he's a freak athlete. I mean, look at him. I mean, that guy should not be a right fielder with the cannon of an arm. And if he can just make contact with the baseball and lay out that slider low and away, he's going to hit the ball extremely hard, and it's going to look effortless. He could have a big season if he can just lay off the slider low and away. I would put my pixie dust on him, hoping that you finally get that breakout from what was supposed to be the star that saved the franchise and prevented the rebuild.
The pixie dust, all of it. Tanner, your dust, Tinkerbell's dust, all of it in the universe. It goes to none other than Jordan Walker. Tanner, you had exactly my same sentiments because you're still talking, Alex, about a guy who was supposed to have been revered as this generational Pujols-esque prospect. Now, maybe the ship has forever sailed in that regard. You're still talking about somebody in his early 20s with the mammoth upside and the potential, with the physical tools, if nothing else, to transform the look of your lineup. And that's why I think it's so integral this season, make or break campaign, however you want to slice it, to give him every available resource and opportunity. And this year, guys, is this the opportunity? Is this a chance we finally see everything come together as far as Jordan Walker also embracing the changes from the jump? Off-season, we saw all the videos. We know about the drive-line stories. We know about the footage we've seen so far early at that, where he embraces the necessary adjustments that Ollie Marmol, that the coaching staff, that Brant Brown specifically outlined last year, and is simply committed more than anything else to the process insofar as that versus what he may have preferred, his own methods that had taken him to this place. But now there's that compromise. There's the understanding and the realization that in order to really make it in the bigs, I have to do these things or I'm probably out of town after this year.
It's a good one, and I think it's probably the most obvious one. To go different, I would put it on Dustin May. And I would do so because if you can have a breakout season from him, if he can go out there, stay healthy, be dominant, look like not a 1, but a 2, a 3, that's an asset to trade at the deadline. And if I'm doing anything right now as the Cardinals organization, I'm looking for assets that can provide me more assets. And that's why you signed Dustin May. You didn't sign Dustin May to be competitive. You didn't sign Dustin May to make you to get to the playoffs. You signed Dustin May because, 1, you need somebody who could give you innings, and 2, you're going on upside. And if Dustin May can provide that, if I give him all of this pixie dust and he's going to go out there and post a 3 ERA and have some strikeout stuff, you know what other teams that are trying to get to the playoffs want to do? They want to go get a guy who doesn't have any control underneath him, and that would be a guy like Dustin May. So that'd be the route I'd go, and I'd hope that I could get a pretty decent return back for it.
Yeah, the only reason I would lean on Walker as a position player or a position player, like I thought about Gorman in this realm as well, is because they need to start getting answers, positive answers on some position players. And you're not going to get a highly touted prospect like Jordan Walker was in exchange for Dustin May. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's a pitching guy right now that I really want to put the pixie dust and quote-unquote waste it because it only gets to make one player do the season that I kind of dream of here on one of the pitchers. And that's not a shot against the pitchers. I just don't know how much upside there is in a like Richard Fitz, or Hunter Dobbins or Michael McGreevy. Like I like a bunch of those arms, but it's not like a Liam Doyle who's not here yet. And so I would lean Walker. I would understand Gorman as well because if you can get some positive returns on this, we talked about this last week when BK was here. If they don't get positive returns on some of these position players moving forward and they have a extremely bad offense like Pacota's projecting this year, I don't know where the position players are coming from because Baez is the next closest one, Joshua Baez, who's an outfielder. So maybe you replace Walker if he doesn't hit. Who's next? It's Rodriguez, and he's probably 2 or 3 years away as a catcher. And maybe you end up getting some guys that end up being closer from this year's draft with your high picks. But I would be skeptical of where they're going with their position players if they can't get positive answers this year.
I think there's a lot of options that you could go with this one because, frankly, that's what a rebuild looks like. Everybody needs that pixie dust. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, did we see an injury in the Olympics that could make sense for the Blues to pull off a big-time trade? We'll discuss that, but coming up next, you send us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are in or out next. 314-399-9646 here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 1985, the Blues would defeat the Minnesota North Stars 6-4. The Blues would get their scoring beginning with Rob Ramage's 4th of the year and Joe Mullen on a power play penalty shot. Minnesota would score 2 in the second as well as the Blues, but then the Blues would put the game out of reach from a power play goal on Brian Sutter and Luke Dufour scoring for St. Louis.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
Three 314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also, our YouTube channel over at 101 ESPN STL. You can jump in on our graveyard chat to jump in on in or out. You send us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out. We were just telling T-Bone, or I was telling T-Bone, I watched American Pie last night. Phenomenal film that would not be able to be made today, but oh my God, the one-liners. And T-Bone looks up, says, I've never heard of that.
Never seen it.
I need you to watch that and report back.
62% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I need you. Don't worry about Rotten Tomatoes. This isn't a film you're trying to judge off of Rotten Tomatoes.
This is 7 out of 10 on IMDb.
Coming-of-age film that you need to watch, and I need you to report back.
58% on some metric I've never heard of.
Oh, my God. T-Bone, you've got to watch it. It is outstanding. Also, you didn't like Big Daddy, so you really won't like this film.
Okay, then I
know. Yeah, but, God, it's such a good one. You got to watch it, T-Bone. Send us a scenario, 314-399-9646. We'll tell you if we are in or out. Guys, in or out, the Blues make a trade day one that the Olympic roster freeze is lifted.
Oh, I'm going to lean in. I believe these GMs aren't over there not talking hockey trades. Like, come on.
For reference, February 22nd at midnight, or 11 o'clock our time is when it is lifted.
I'm in on this. Army's one of the, 3 sellers right now on the market. A lot of GMs are over there in Milan right now.
All of them probably are.
What else are they going to talk about while they're in Italy? I'm in. I think they will move someone. I don't think it'll be anybody big. I don't think it'll be like a Kyrou deal or something like that. Yeah. But Pius Suter, yeah, I could see where Suter's name gets talked about after his performance so far in the Olympics and gets dealt.
I'm out on this one simply because, guys, I'm playing those odds, okay? Day number 1, you're settling back into the proceedings somewhat, but, Alex, I am looking forward to pregame next Thursday at 6, puck drop 7 against the Kraken right here on 101 ESPN.
Well, you better look forward to it.
I'm more excited for Duke Syracuse. Pregame coverage starts at 5:30 tonight with tip-off at 6. I ain't waiting until next Thursday.
That's tonight, man. 10 more days you get this one. I'm out on this. I don't think it happens right away. I think Doug's going to hold on to these assets until the trade deadline. Trade deadline is when people start to get aggressive and desperate, because I think you're going to want some of these teams to come back and play. And if it doesn't look good when they return, like Washington, for example, I've comped them to Kyrou for the last couple of weeks. If they come back and fighting for a playoff spot and it doesn't look crisp, that's where teams start to say, all right, we got to go get an asset. You start to get desperate when other teams make moves. So I'm out. I think this one holds on until the trade deadline. T-Bone?
Guys, in or out of starters that make, I'm going to go 15 starts this season just to kind of help give us a baseline here. Of starters to make at least 15 starts this season, Michael McGreevy will lead the team in ERA.
I'm going to say out. I think he'll be probably number 2. I would hold out that in terms of ERA, it's either Liberatore or Dustin May that leads that category, and then McGreevy is right there behind him. But I like your thinking.
I will go in, and I'll do you one better, so to speak, as well. Not only will he lead all staff members in that ERA department, how about innings pitched, maybe even victories? This guy is tailor-made for not only being that innings eater, but giving you quality frames at that. I believe in the mental and the physical makeup of Michael McGreevy. Truly think he's the breakout candidate on the pitching side.
I would say out as well. I would bet more on Liberatore if he can figure out the velo issues towards the end of the season. Dustin May, because I put the 15 start threshold there. I think May could do that because I truly believe in the bounce back for him this coming season. The reason I'm not willing to bet on McGreevy, just doesn't miss bats. And the key, if you're going to have a low ERA in modern baseball, is not pitch to contact. And he only had 5.5 strikeouts per night. Now, he doesn't walk anybody, which is a good sign. But if you have to rely on BABIP, your ERA is going to fluctuate as well, too. So, yeah, I would say I'm out on this. I do think he might lead the team in innings, though.
Oh, I'm with you there.
I said this back in, July of last year. I said McGreevy's probably going to be the MVP of this rotation this coming season. And I still kind of stand by that because I think he's going to lead them in innings. Who's covering innings for this team?
Right.
Like, Liberatore, I don't know that I can rely on. You're going to have...
Dustin May doesn't have a history of it.
Dustin May doesn't have a history of it. Dobbins was coming off of an ACL injury. Fitz is, we'll see. the only guy that I feel confident in saying, like, he's probably going to give you 6 innings on any given start would be Michael McGreevy, because he pitches to contact and he's efficient as well.
Yeah, I like that one.
Relatively light day on the NFL side, guys. However, the Miami Dolphins are certainly cleaning house, releasing wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Not a surprise there. And also, apparently, to come, Pro Bowl linebacker Bradley Chubb. So in or out next season, the Miami Dolphins, not the New York Jets, bring up that rear in the AFC East.
I'll be in on this. I think the Giants are going to be better than the Dolphins because they got better coaching and they got a better quarterback. So even if you could have told me,
you mean the Jets?
Oh yeah, no, you said the Giants, didn't you?
The Jets.
The Jets.
In the
okay, sorry.
AFC East.
Sorry, I thought you said the Jets.
Hey, if you're buying into Aaron Glenn, be my guest.
No.
Yeah,
I'm out on this. Sorry, I thought you said the Giants.
Let me tell you who's getting fired next season. Yeah. Aaron Glenn, because the Jets are a disaster.
That's even with like their defense being better, although they traded their 2 best pieces away this past season. Yeah, no. Dolphins could keep making cuts, and I'd still think they'd be better off.
Miami will not be good whatsoever. But if you're telling me this team can at least eclipse the Jets in or out, the Jets actually have a turnover in 2026. Remains to be seen.
Doubtful on that. Ugh. All right, in or out, if the Cardinals finish 500 or slightly above, Ali Marmol should be considered for manager of the year.
Should he be considered? Yes, I agree.
He won't.
Would he? My guess would be no.
You got to be in the play. You got to be in the playoff conversation if you're going to get manager of the year.
I think the other thing too that'll make it tough for him in this case, outside the Dodgers, like who's a team with like significant high expectations this year? The Cubs. And what I mean by that is like the Braves, the Mets, the Phillies, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants. Those 6 teams are going to be teams that'll fight for a playoff spot. And outside those West teams I named, fight for the division in the NL East. Anybody believe in those teams?
No.
Nobody believes in those teams. So, like, if one of those teams, and I'll even throw the Cubs in this, they're a little bit of this. If one of those teams surprises and either pushes the Dodgers or wins the NL East with 94 wins, that manager's definitely going to get more consideration for manager of the year than Ali Marmol.
Yeah. I'm in it, though, when it comes to actually receiving that, garnering some of that consideration, because with this group, if you even approach 80 victories, absolutely, you should be in the talk at minimum. And in so doing, for whatever it's worth record-wise this coming season, Ali Marmol entering the year, 325 and 323, you'd remain right there for your managerial career at 500. That's funny.
Beavis' sports performance, in or out, the Blues should go through a mini rebuild the next 2 to 3 years to develop and draft top players due to them falling behind in the Central. I don't know how you do a mini rebuild without just doing a rebuild.
That's the thing.
Like, what you're saying is a retool, which is what they just tried to do, and it failed. I do think they could make this team better in a year or two, depending on if they can make the right moves, but all of that relies on you making the right moves. If you want to tank and be bad and get top picks, so be it. But, man, when you start to tank and go for those top picks, one, you typically don't get those picks, i.e. look at what the Detroit Red Wings have tried to accomplish, and not once have they selected first or second overall. And 2, you fail on those picks and they don't turn out and you're back into it. So I would say out on a mini rebuild. I would say in on trying to make some hockey trades and bring in different players for guys that aren't working here.
Yeah, the only reason I'm out is because I agree with what you said. I don't think there's such a thing as a mini rebuild. To end up with the number 1, number 2 overall pick, which is what I would call a rebuild, or top 3, honestly, you get there typically only by mistake once, right? And that's what I would call this year for the Blues. For some reason, everything just didn't work. Your best players weren't your best players. Thomas dealt with some injuries and maybe was hurt most of the year, and that's why his performance was down. If you go out and you get a Stenberg, for example, we'll use him as the placeholder here, and you put him on Thomas's line, even if you make other moves, right? Like you trade Suter, you trade Shen, you trade Falk, you trade Binnington, you trade Kyrou, for example. That top line is probably too good to get you back in the top 3 again. Mm-hmm. So I agree on your sentiment of you probably can't do a mini rebuild. It's probably more of a mini, it's probably just another retool. Mm-hmm. Rebuild is typically like what the Sharks and Blackhawks have done, where like they're in year 5 and you're now starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
And you can reset it quickly if you get a good pick this year. We're going to talk about this in the 1 o'clock hour, but man, if you could get a 1 or 2 pick this season in the draft, you're already ahead of the timeline with that 2 to 3 retool if you're trying to accomplish that. Let's do this one. Final one from the 314. In or out of all of the 3 local teams, SLU will make it the furthest in the tournament.
Out.
I think Illinois is a Final Four team.
I'm with you. And I don't just say that as the Illinois fan. You remember me last year? I was a mess when we got to March with that team.
I remember. It's fun.
SLU's a good team. I think they can potentially, depending on what the matchup is they get in the second round, because I think there are some very good teams at the top this year. I think they can be a Sweet 16 team. I don't know if I'd go much further. It's just going to be hard for them to go on that kind of a run, and especially, like you said, Illinois to me feels like a Final Four team, and SLU's not going to be able to get to that.
The bottom line is that Illinois, with all due respect, seriously, to SLU, you have been able to weather the challenges in the Big Ten. Tanner, yesterday, a step back in the right direction. You expected to win, I think, at high noon against Indiana, but to do so in that fashion, basically getting back to business on the inside as well, the guard play, getting all the personnel back into place. It's a more battle-tested team heading into the tournament, still with that makeup of a would-be Final Four team.
They'll go further than Missouri. I'll bet that.
Missouri's going to be
see how I excluded the Tigers?
The
I know, but I felt like they belonged in here.
Yeah, they belong.
Would they accept a bid in the NIT?
You better, just to do something to applaud yourself for a
they
season.
might get knocked out in the first round of the NIT.
Hey, that's even worse.
More practices, more games.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's get more of those and still be bad at the free throw line. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario coming up at 15. That's right. I threw the shot. I threw the jab, Brandon Bradford. We'll get to the junk drawer coming up at 15, but coming up next, does this team make sense to trade for Jordan Kyrou now? We'll discuss that. And does Pew Suter trade make sense? On next here on 101 ESPN.
68%.
Tune in all week as the morning after broadcast live from Cardinals spring training in Jupiter, Florida. Tim, Doug, Martin, and Jackson are talking with players and coaches and keeping you up to date on all things Redbirds and Roger Dean Stadium. Don't miss TMA live from spring training all week. Brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. Injury happens, regeneration works. Same-day pain relief at healthcareevolution.com.
Oh, you know I'm gearing up for the qualification games tomorrow in the Men's Hockey Olympics, and that means I'm opening up my Underdog app. It is the place to be for all of the action, NBA, Olympic hockey action. It's all done for you over on Underdog, and you can make plays and win money now in the state of Missouri. So I pull up Sweden. I think that's going to be the one that's probably going to be the highest scoring game, so I put my plays together. First things first, Underdog, I open it up. I get a profit boost of 40%. Those promos dropping daily. daily on the Underdog app. So I've got 4 picks. I've got higher on Adrian Kempe shots on goal, higher on Dahlin goals, higher on Nylander goals, and I have to pick something on the other side for Latvia, so I'm going Belinsky's higher on goals. All of those with my 40% profit boost pays 42-1 odds. So get in on all of the action. Download the Underdog app today and use promo code BKO and score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog. Make plays. Win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/playing. Get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
McGreevy makes case for a rotation spot. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns with a Sports Center update presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals spring training is underway ahead of the 2026 season. Among those hurlers poised to rise in Jupiter, 25-year-old Michael McGreevy. He joined TMA earlier this morning, expressing optimism about what lies ahead.
It's a good feeling, but, everything's earned, and you got to win a job. So I'm not going to sit up on my high horse like, ooh, I'm penciled in the starting rotation. I want to earn that. I want to take it.
Number 36, as well as Ozzie Smith, swung through camp hours ago. Check out those conversations on 101ESPN.com. Olympic pucks. Team USA demolished Sweden on the women's side a little while ago, 5-0. Defenseman Kayla Barnes scoring first. Men's side, Mike Sullivan's bunch will resume play Wednesday. Your Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So we had our first major injury over in Olympic action. For those that may have missed it, Switzerland was taking on Canada, and Tom Wilson, who was brought over because of his physicality, had a pretty ugly check against Kevin Fiala along the boards. I don't think it was intentional of trying to injure him, but legs got tied up, and Fiala suffered a fractured leg, and he had to be carted off, and it was announced yesterday that he is going to miss the rest of the regular season. Side note, this happens. I mean, I know people are going to be up in arms of this is why these guys shouldn't play in the Olympics. The same injury could have happened in the regular season, so don't come at me with the get them out of the Olympics. This is the most entertainment, although T-Bone thinks it's a snooze fest, you're going to get with Olympic play because of these guys over there. But still, when these happen, general managers immediately go, crap, now what do we do? And I mean, the LA Kings just put all of their chips in for the next couple of seasons, even though I know Artemi Panarin signed a contract extension. But in all reality, they made that trade for Panarin because the last year of Anze Kopitar is this season. And you try and go out there and win a Stanley Cup or at least make it competitive in the captain's final season. And so the moment Fiala went down, I saw a lot of people going, they're going to go after Jordan Kyrou now. They're going to go trade for Jordan Kyrou. Makes sense. Go get a winger, put him into your core, and now you can fill that void left by Kevin Fiala. I understand the sentiment. Me personally, I don't think it's a match at all. Because the Kings, in my opinion, traded their best asset that they had to acquire something for Artemi Panarin. That was Liam Greentree, their first overall pick that they selected last year. If you look at their minor league system, all of the former first-round picks and high prospects have graduated to the NHL level. They ain't got a whole lot in their minor league system. And if you're talking about trading Jordan Kyrou, we know by now that Doug Armstrong has set the prices high. You're going to have to get something off of their NHL roster if the Blues are going to trade Kyrou. It's player for player. I just don't see a scenario to where the Kings are willing to part with one of their younger pieces that makes sense for the Blues, because that doesn't make them any better. So it's a fascinating thought, and I know the Kings are going to be hungry to go make another move. I don't think Jordan Kyrou is it, because we're talking Quentin Byfield, Brant Clark. They're not going to trade one of those guys to the St. Louis Blues. That doesn't make their team better.
Yeah, I find it interesting to see what their pivot's going to be, because I think you can make a case for Kyrou to the Kings. The tough part is like what you're saying. It's tough to figure out what the return would be that makes sense for the Blues, because you're right. I don't think they would move on from Quentin Byfield. I don't think they would move on from their defenseman and Brant Clark. I just don't see that in the range of outcomes for them. Maybe they would do Brant Clark if they thought, okay, if we bring in Kyrou, he's going to eat up another $8 million in our cap space next year, and they've got $15 million in cap space going into next season, and they say, we won't pay Brant Clark, so we'll put him in this package to the St. Louis Blues. But I don't know. I find it interesting. Would you be willing to center it around if it was picks oriented towards Jordan Kyrou? They put in I don't know if I'd call him a lottery ticket prospect, but one of their middle prospects, and go their first round pick this year and maybe like a second in this year's draft as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't personally. I think if I'm trading Kyrou, names have to be associated with it, not picks. If we're talking Shen, Falk, Binnington, any of those other pieces, I'm fine with picks. I think with Kyrou, and if you trade Robert Thomas, it has to be names. Like somebody brought up, they've got a kid that they drafted in the second round this past draft, Wojtek Sihar, who's a Czechoslovakian. He's playing in the WHL right now. That doesn't interest me. That means you're 4 years away. I mean, this kid's 18 years old, and it's a second-round pick. Typically, they say for late first and second-round picks, you're looking at like 3 to 4 years before you see them at the NHL level. I don't think that makes any sense. I think the only way Kings call and say, we want Jordan Kyrou, great. Quentin Byfield or Brant Clark. And I know people are going to say, well, that's too high of a price. Exactly. That's why I'm not going to just go out there and trade Kyrou. I know you want to trade him for trade's sake. You've got to get names back that get put right into your roster, either right away or are at the minor league level, juniors level, college level, that will be ready for the NHL next season. So I don't think the Kings are an interest. Now, if the Kings call and say, hey, can't get Kyrou, but what about Pavel Buchnevich? That would be something I'd consider. And if it's a low-level prospect and a pick, yeah, I'd look at that, because now I'm getting off of a salary that I don't know if it's going to be good for me in a couple of years, and I'm getting an asset in return, which is more money. But in terms of Kyrou or Thomas, no, it's got to be name associated.
Yeah, I mean, I agree on the Booch front. I don't know how realistic it is
I don't think
on
it is.
the Booch front, but like the reason I brought up Kyrou and the reason I found it interesting when the Fiala injury happened, they're going to need to upgrade that wing spot. And I think they'd probably be able to do it. It'd be tied up against the cap, because you got to remember Kyrou's not $8.125 million when he's traded.
Yes.
It's prorated when he gets moved at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I find interesting, so what you said about it's got to be names, right? It's got to be players that you look at that are either NHL ready now, which is what Quentin Byfield is, or the defenseman that we just brought up, or if it's a guy that is close to the NHL level as a prospect. I agree on that for Robert Thomas, and I think I agree on it for Kyrou. But to play devil's advocate, what if no one's willing to do that for Jordan Kyrou? And the answer is either you have to take more of draft picks in return / more prospects that are further away, or running it back with the same core going into next year. Because if you're not going to get that for Thomas, And if you're not going to get that for Jordan Kyrou, aren't we just talking about bringing back the same core, which we have argued is they need to change almost for just change sake at this point?
You're 100% right. That decision, though, I'll make in the offseason. That decision I'm not going to make at the deadline, because I think when teams get booted out of the first round of the playoffs that thought they were going to go deeper and they find out that we don't have enough scoring, then they come back to the table and say, cool, let's renegotiate this conversation. And then they get a little bit more desperate. Like I brought up with Jeff Merrick, do the Buffalo Sabres make sense? They got a lot of defensemen and they need more offense. And he said it's an interesting one because they're not going to be able to keep Byram, Dahlin, and Power because you've already got another guy on the left-handed side and guys in the minor league system. So you're right, T-Bone. I can't come back with the same core next season. But I'm not going to make that decision at the deadline. I'm going to negotiate, and then at the draft, then I'm going to actually get to the point where, all right, my back's up against the wall here. And maybe teams call my bluff. Maybe teams say, you're not going to get that, so stop trying. But if I'm Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen, I'm going to be patient and wait for that and then make the decision of, cool, now let's get a package of draft picks to try and move up in the draft this season.
Yeah, and a lot of people on the text line are saying, well, guys, you're not going to get that, so I don't know why you're talking about it. I still think you're going to get a good return for Jordan Kyrou.
Oh, I do too.
Because if you can get him to waive the no-trade clause, that's the other aspect of this with the L.A. Kings. I would assume he'd love to live in L.A., but I could be wrong.
Everybody loves to live in L.A., right?
Everybody in the NHL goes, okay, so Kyrou dating back to 2021-22 season, all-star appearance, 75 points, 73 points, 67 points, 70 points, 30-plus goals in 3 of those 4 seasons that I had mentioned. The one that I didn't, he had 27 goals in that campaign. A lot of people are going to look at what Kyrou's done this year and say it's just a one-off with his offensive production. Now, you can question the defense. That's never been his game, was his defense. A lot of teams are going to try and buy low on the Blues, and this is where Army/Steen, I should say, are going to have to walk that fine line of, are we changing the core for core's sake? And if we are, do we have to almost take pennies on the dollar to make that happen?
Yeah.
If people start to call our bluff. And that's where I find it gets interesting. Because if that's the case, I'm not even sure how critical I would be about that if you end up selling lower on Kyrou than what maybe you would like to. And the reason I say that is I don't think this core works.
Yeah.
And I think you have to move on from one of these pieces this time around by the time we get done with the offseason. So it's something that I find interesting when we get into the offseason. But that's why I connected the Kings to him is, yeah, you're right. There's probably not a lot of prospects, especially since they sent their best one in the Panarin trade. But they're clearly going for it. They could probably make this work cap-wise. The question is, though, would you be willing to settle more for picks as the headliner than rather going for prospects or NHL-ready players?
Yeah, and I won't – if they make that move in the offseason, I won't bash them because I'll look at that as, look, they exhausted all options. You had to make a change. That this is what I'll blast them if they do it at the deadline because to me that's premature. You need to wait until more teams come into the race if they're not making the move at the deadline. The other player that I would find fascinating for the Kings is, do they try for Robert Thomas? Because I know he's not a winger, but, man, they've got a lot of wingers. Like, Fiala's hurt now. He'll be back next season. They've got Panarin. They've got Adrian Kempe. They've got Alex Laferriere, who I know they're using as a centerman. I think they prefer to use him as a winger. They've got top 4 wingers or top 6 wingers. What they don't have is center depth. Like, their top centermen right now are Kopitar, Byfield, and Kopitar is going to be gone after this season. So it's going to be Byfield and Byfield and Laferriere. Trevor Moore's a winger. Does their appetite get a little more interested in Robert Thomas? That's where you could pull off a bigger move. But, again, I don't know if the Kings are the team unless they're willing to really talk major shifting of identity. And they might be that team in the offseason versus at the trade deadline. Tanner Hendricks and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get back into the Blues in the 1 o'clock hour, talk a little more Dalibor, Dvorsky, and the potential of a top 2 pick. But coming up next, we'll dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
It's an NBA weekend on ESPN. Saturday, Knicks and Rockets. Pre-game at 7. Tip-off at 7:30 p.m. Then Sunday, it's Warriors and Nuggets. Pre-game at 2. Tip-off at 2:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. ESPN has your shot to score a 4-pack of tickets to Monster Energy AMA Supercross, returning to the Dome at America's Center Saturday, April 4th. Watch the premier riders in the world as well as the rising stars as they put it all on the line for the coveted title of Supercross Champion. Experience the intense racing of the world's most demanding sport live at Monster Energy AMA Supercross.
Get all the info and register to win a free 4-pack of tickets now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside Tanner Hendricks and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got?
Guys, The Athletic did a interesting story, I thought, over the weekend, and I wanted to get your guys' thought on it.
Okay.
They had a piece that was the hardest coaching jobs in sports.
Ooh.
What are the toughest coaching jobs in sports? Now, like some of these, they had like Real Madrid on here, right? I don't want to go to national, right? Because national, I think you can really pull in a bunch of soccer.
Sports.
Pro sports here in the United States, or just sports in the United States. What would you say are the toughest coaching jobs?
And you're not just saying like individual sports, you're going teams. Like the individual team, that's the toughest.
Yeah, so the ones that they had on the list that were from North America.
Okay.
The Jets.
Yeah.
The Yankees.
Yeah.
The Lakers.
Yeah.
The Knicks.
Yeah.
I'll throw the Maple Leafs in here. I know they're Canadian, but they're in the NHL.
It's North
and then
America.
Alabama football as
yes.
their list of the American ones.
Okay.
As
So
the
college
toughest jobs
does apply. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I was gonna say, Alabama probably has to be number one.
Basically half of the SEC.
Alabama football, though, I mean, like you're going on the hands of Nick Saban. One loss, people are calling for your head.
I agree. I think I would put Michigan and Ohio State up there.
Yeah.
I agree.
I would put the Philadelphia Eagles up there. Mostly because that fan base is so brutal. And now that they have won, like if you were today, that job opening, that is not an easy job in terms of handling it.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's weird because, like, I don't necessarily completely disagree. I think you are right. It is a tough job. But I don't think there's any that are close to the collegiate sports.
Oh, no.
I don't know what the close is.
Collegiate is a different entity versus pro
I think
sports.
Dodgers would be the toughest pro sports one for me. Now,
I'd put Yankees over Dodgers.
See, I wouldn't because Boone's like underperformed the last like 5 years and he's still there.
Yeah, but we're going off of toughest for the pressure that you're dealing with.
I'm also going, when I think of pressure too, I'm thinking like Bama, for example, who we mentioned.
Yeah.
9 wins. Mizzou, BK would like run around with the shirt off around the hallways here at Hubbard.
true,
But
I've
maybe
seen it.
Bradford too, I'm not sure.
Bradford, yep.
But
5 years ago.
9 wins at Bama, and you're talking about DeBoer being fired.
Well, and that's
right?
why, like, I kind of...
Michigan, you lose to Ohio State, and everybody was like, you got to fire Harbaugh. Harbaugh can't beat Ohio State. Same with Ryan Day at
I
Ohio
kind
State.
of feel like you have to separate college and pro because college is like sponsors that are like calling and saying, I'm giving you money, you need to fire this. Pro is like ownership and fan base that's putting pressure on it.
But the reason I would put the Dodgers ahead of most pro sports teams, and if not all of them right now, is, dude, they're in World Series or bust.
Yeah.
And, like, I think you could have made an argument had they not won the World Series, 2 years ago? With Dave Roberts, he was going to be fired.
I don't know if, like, me personally, I don't look at it as the coach. If they lose, I'm saying, yeah, your players were bad. Like, you got the wrong players. Which is crazy to say, but like your best players, the best in baseball, you know why they keep winning? Because they actually perform. I'm not trying to take anything away because I do think there's strategy that goes into it. If we're going off of difficulty of jobs in terms of what they do, man, baseball feels like you're not, like I would have hockey and football coaches ahead of baseball coaches in terms of the difficulty in game because there's so many decisions that are taking place in a matter of seconds that you have to make.
And I think the turnover rate as well, I think applies and reinforces that exact point. And with respect to college, can we all agree that it's football and then everything else by a vast divide? Because the only other sport, honestly, that I would think about in this capacity, and it's not exactly the same, but if you're talking about college hoops, for example, think about a program, think about, honestly, the seamless transition that has taken place from Mike Krzyzewski to John Shire at Duke. Now, a lot of us wouldn't necessarily equate that with the utmost pressure, but think about how seamlessly Shire has been able to take the baton there. But we don't talk about that nearly as much, not even as close as the football side of things.
Yeah, John Scores in the YouTube chat said Kentucky basketball. That's a good one for the collegiate side.
That is good.
We've seen how much pressure their coach is coming under this year for a team where he was under pressure. I think it's cooled now.
UNC's around there, around.
Yeah, Uncle Sam brings up another really good one, the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
Cowboys, dude, there's a ton of pressure. America's team at the NFL level.
That feels like it's more pressure
And
from fans, too, because ownership, they'll stick with you.
Yeah, and Jerry Jones, like, Jerry Jones is kind of the media voice there.
Yeah,
like,
he always handles the
that
pressure.
takes some of the pressure off. Long as you can just stay in Jerry Jones' good graces, though. But I would agree, that is a very tough one as well for the NFL. I don't think there's a hockey one that stacks up with NFL ones here. Because I don't think that there's one.
I think Toronto does. I know it's a Canadian market, but we're going off of just North America itself. Dude, like, they were praising Craig Berube when they hired him, like, last season? Now people are calling for his head. Like, they got rid of players because teams were frustrated with them.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the NHL when it comes to coaching because, like, a lot of these guys get the axe, and I don't even know if it's anything to do with fan pressure as it is they just lose motivation in players, right?
Yeah. I think
now,
ownership
Toronto, you're probably right.
I think ownership puts and media puts a lot of pressure on Toronto because they're owned by a media entity. So it's like, if we're not performing, you're getting the axe.
I've got another one for you too in the association. Being the basketball guy, you referenced the Lakers, right, Tanner? If you're talking about going from one coast to another, how about the New York Knicks, a team, a proud franchise, one of the obvious catalysts there from the early NBA days. Haven't won a title since 1973. Pat Riley couldn't get it done, and you've just been churning through guys in recent seasons. Tibbs, conference finals, great. He's out. Mike Brown is in that position now, just basically chasing its tail, that franchise, for a long time.
Yeah, I would put Lakers ahead of them slightly, but I think they're probably second on the list for me in the NBA. And when I think of pressure, I'm thinking, like, you don't win, you're out. And the Lakers fit that. Why? Because they've got the corpse of LeBron James at this point in his career.
Yeah, corpse?
Where, well, he's not the same guy.
He's kind of a corpse.
He's not the king anymore. He's more of just LeBron.
Oh, you want him to defend for 48 minutes? How about Luka defend for 5?
Isn't he a stud?
Oh,
yeah, I'll go there.
LeBron's supposed to do it. Luka's not.
Oh,
That's why the Mavs traded him.
Accept the best assignment, 9 in and 9 out.
That's the one that I was thinking of. Like, if you don't win the big prize.
Put it on my bingo card of not getting into a Lakers argument in this segment. But you know what? Bingo, ladies and gentlemen. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I really like that one. The junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. Coming up at 15 is Dalibor Dvorsky, making you dream a little bit more on his potential for what he's doing in the Olympics. But how long of a runway does Ivan Herrera get behind the plate this season? We'll discuss that next here on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Jared McCormick from Ellis Grove, Illinois. He is our newest 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty. See us at carstar.com.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
This week, the morning after, broadcasting live 7 to 11 a.m. daily from Cardinals Spring Training in Jupiter, Florida. TMA live from spring training all this week. It's brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. And if you can't catch them, get caught up on all of the interviews that they've done this week. It's posted over at 101ESPN.com. They had Ozzie Smith earlier today, Michael McGreevy, and Mike Claiborne with plenty more interviews coming your way the rest of this week. And you can also check that out on the 101 ESPN app, the easy-to-use app, which is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Also, you could watch it over on the YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Speaking of Cardinal Spring Training, we, of course, have seen this now for a few days now as pitchers and catchers are down there, position players making their way down there as well. Ivan Herrera, of course, is going to get the workload this season behind the plate as the catcher. They talked about it in the offseason, how he was focusing on being the number one guy behind the plate, working towards that. Had some offseason surgery so that he was prepared to go. We've already seen him kind of working on it, and Yadier Molina's down there today as well, working with Ivan Herrera. Now, T-Bone, I know you're probably the lowest on Herrera as a catcher, not him as a player, but as a catcher of the three of us on the show. But looking at Herrera, how much do you think the Cardinals are going to give him leeway this season of being that catcher, of going through the ups and downs?
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how they do this. And there's one thing I want to bring up, too, with this, but I'll get to it here in just a second. You know, the things that you have to wonder about with Herrera, one is the actual defense part of this, right? The blocking, more throwing down to second base. That's the part that I'm skeptical of. But we'll see with the loose body part that they figured out. I think ideally you'd like to say, hey, we'll give him the entire year to see how he works as a catcher, how his blocking is, how his defense is, trying to throw runners out at second and third base and so on and so forth. But I think where it will get hard potentially is if this is a struggle in the first, we'll say, I'll go month and a half of this, right? And he's not been able to throw guys out still, which was a problem. I'm not even going to focus in on the blocking. Maybe the framing's not really there, but ABS, he might be able to get a little bit away with this now that that's a reviewable system. But what about the game calling, right? What if pitchers feel like, hey, this guy's not calling a great game, runners are running all over me? Do they start to kind of have questions about having Herrera behind the plate? And are they going to go to the management and say, hey, look, I don't know if I can throw to this guy, right? I mean, we saw this last year, early in the year. They kind of wanted Pages with Sonny Gray, right? That was on purpose. That was the veteran wanted to be with the guy that was more of the game caller and the receiver. Will pitchers kind of start to turn on him? Because if they do, now it becomes a serious conversation of, okay, well, are we really going to just continue to do this with our young pitching staff, with all these guys that we're still trying to develop outside of Dustin May, right? You're still trying to figure out what you have in Matthew Liberatore. You're trying to learn what Michael McGreevy is. Kyle Leahy, is he going to work as a starter? Well, if they question Ivan Herrera behind home plate, whether it's throwing guys out or game calling, what do the Cardinals do if pressure starts to mount on them from internally, from within the staff? You know, and that's where I think ideally the Cardinals would love to say we're going to go a full year, right? We're going from the first game in late March all the way to the final game in September, and he's going to be the everyday catcher. I think he's probably got about a month and a half, though, to prove that he can at least be decent behind the plate when it comes to throwing guys out and receiving and blocking, but also be a game manager when it comes to calling pitches. Now, one thing that I would love to ask Ali Marmol and the coaching staff, there was a piece today in The Athletic about Tony Vitello, who's the new manager of the San Francisco Giants. And this started to become a thing last year of Tony Vitello said, hey, when I was at Tennessee, we called the pitches from the dugout, right? The game managing from the catcher's perspective wasn't necessarily on the catcher. We were the one calling the pitches. if you feel like that is a problem, I wonder if that is something the Cardinals would consider doing, is calling pitches from the dugout. So what the Giants are discussing if they're going to do. They've got a good game caller in Patrick Bailey. They're discussing it. The Rockies have said that they're probably going to explore this year. The Marlins did this last year with a offensive-minded catcher first and foremost. Is that something the Cardinals could do if hey, you know what, Herrera's doing a pretty good job behind the plate when it comes to stealing, but maybe the pitchers feel like he's not doing a good job of calling the game? Would the Cardinals consider calling the signs from in the dugout, or do they still stick with, and I would personally still like to have the catcher calling the game, but maybe the newer school is, hey, maybe we call the game and take away some of that pressure off of our catcher?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that doesn't get integrated into baseball until they see if it works with Tony Vitello. If, like, they have this huge success with it, then I think teams start to adapt to it. But I would be very fascinated to see what Ali says about that, because it does take a massive workload off of Ivan Herrera. To answer your question and to answer the question we're talking about here, I think his leash is as long as his leash is as long until somebody takes over it from him. And what I mean by that is not Pedro Pages, not Pozo, Bernal, Crooks, Rodriguez. Like, those are the guys that I think are pushing for one of those catcher positions. And until they're ready for it, I don't think they're going to move Herrera out of that spot. I think if you're telling him and having the offseason surgery and saying, we need you to focus on training so that you're ready to handle this load, you don't pull the rug out from under him a month and a half in if it doesn't work. Yes, you're right about the development of pitchers, and if they're having problems, then you're going to have to adjust. I think you make those adjustments because you're trying to find the spot to fit Ivan Herrera into the lineup now. And you're not worried about it if, it doesn't work out or if it fails at this point. The development is where the most important factor is. I don't think this is a long-term plan for the Cardinals. If Herrera's bat comes alive and injuries become an issue this season, then you probably divert to him being a DH or him playing another position. But I don't think that leash is long or short until somebody else in the system says, I'm ready to be a major league catcher. And I don't believe that's going to be this season.
And see, the only thing I would push back there is I do think they would view this as the long-term plan. I don't think they give him a full season of runway if they're not hoping he's the catcher of the future for however long that might be. I don't think this is a 1 year we're getting him behind the plate, maybe 2, and then like when, whether it's Bernal or Rodriguez is ready, boom, we push him out of it. No, I think they look at this and they see the landscape of baseball and they're saying, okay, if we're going to go defensive-minded first at shortstop and at center field, and shortstop especially, like you look at the top 10 list that MLB Network did this year, those are studs that are in the top 10 at that shortstop position. That is a offense/defense position at this point. If you're going defense first there, you've got to make up for it somewhere around the diamond. So where can you get that advantage? It would be behind the plate because there's like 3 really good offensive catchers in baseball. Like Will Smith's the first one that pops into my mind. That's what you're hoping is if his bat continues to play, you then continue to hope that that position he can be like top 3 in. So this would be a long-term play, but I'm fascinated to know what it looks like a month and a half in because I thought they were going to do this last year. If they were going to split time with him and Pages, and they immediately went away from it as fast as humanly possible because they trusted Pages to call games. And that was with more of a veteran staff than it is this year. How are the quote-unquote kids going to feel if they don't feel like he's calling a good game? Yeah. Or if they allow a single and the next thing you know, the guy's on second base because he can't stop guys. It's not about wins and losses for the Cardinals, but you still got to make sure that those pitchers feel comfortable throwing to him because that is the big part of this duo between the pitcher and the catcher that's behind home plate.
I don't think I'll be curious to see how many catchers they carry with them. Because if they carry 3 and it's Pages and Crooks, I really wonder if that's because they are going to slow plate with Herrera to where it's going to be a couple of starts here and then you get a couple of DH. If they only carry 2 catchers, man, I think it's going to be off and running. It's going to be you're back there and mistakes happen, deal with it and move forward. Like I think a lot of this season is going to be mistakes happen, keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I think if they carry 3 catchers, I think it's one of 2 things. One, maybe he's not completely ready to go behind the plate with the elbow.
With the injury,
so he's probably
that's a good point.
He's not even really a catcher at that point. He's more of just your DH. Or 2, they plan to use him at DH quite a bit on those days off. So instead of, what we saw last year with Pages, for example, he would catch 2 of the 3 games in a series and then to get the 3rd one off. Catch 2 in the next series, get a day off. So maybe instead of here, they will use him as a DH on one of, if not 2 of those off days, rather than just give him the day completely off. And then what you would want in theory, behind carrying 3 catchers is if you did start Páez, for example.
Right.
Well, let's just say something happens. Páez takes a foul tip off the mask. I talked about this last week. If Páez has to come out of the game in the second inning, you don't really want to burn that DH spot by pulling Herrera back behind the plate, and now you have the pitcher hitting for the rest of the game. So you look at it and say, well, now at least have a third catcher on the bench. I think those are the 2 reasons that if they're going to carry a third catcher, they would do it.
Yeah, fascinating. One little update. So Yadier Molina says he's going to be with the Cardinals at spring training for about a week until the World Baseball Classic happens, and then he'll return for the rest of camp. And he said he'll be at a few series at home this season while also traveling to different affiliates throughout the season. I know, obviously, it was big news today that Yadi was at camp, so that's kind of his duties, much like what it was last season. It's just going to be traveling to other affiliates to work with the catchers in the minor league system. Yeah, and then he'll be here as well.
This time around.
This time he'll be here. Bradford Brunts, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll get back into the Cardinals. Is it a lock that JJ Wetherholt is going to be on Cardinals opening day roster? But coming up next, Dalibor Dvorsky is continuing to show what his potential could be with this performance at the Olympics. That and, boy, when it comes to the top picks, it seems like you're going to need the number 1 overall if you want to have any success moving forward. That's next here on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care, the company that's been making people comfortable since 1926. I talk all the time about their customer service, the technicians that have been working there for 30-plus years, and what they provide using Classic Air Care. Then check out the thousands of positive reviews, 5-star reviews that they have over on their Google Plus page. This one from Cammie. Vince, knowledgeable and professional, came out late on a Friday night, fully inspected my furnace after our gas company reported it was leaking. He ran through several different tests. Inspections showed me that the furnace was working properly. Answered all my questions, clearly explained the entire process, went above and beyond to correctly locate the gas leak in the gas line, and talked to the company on the phone to have them come back to fix the leak immediately. I have already recommended Classic Air Care to multiple friends. They've got 100 vans out on the road, which means they're going to get back to you within 24 hours. They are open 7 days a week with after-hour techs on call. They will help with whatever problems you have with your HVAC system. So call them today or schedule online. Just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Saggese with a shot. The puck is right there. Top hole by Dvorsky. Dvorsky.
So that's courtesy of Peacock. Kenny Albert on the call as Dalibor Dvorsky and Juraj Slafkovsky have just created this dynamic duo for Slovakia, who earned the bye in the tournament, as Slafkovsky had 3 goals and 6 points in 3 games played. But Dalibor Dvorsky, right behind him in terms of points for Slovakia, has 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 total points in 3 games, and a majority of those have come on the power play. We've already talked, T-Bone, about Dalibor Dvorsky and what he has done and how, boy, hopefully this is just kind of a confidence booster for him when he returns to action in the regular season for the NHL. But has this tournament started to allow you to maybe dream on the potential of what Dalibor Dvorsky could be? Because I still remember you and I did the draft show in Nashville when he was drafted, and I
called this. I said 4 points in the 2026 Olympics.
He did. It's wild how T-Bone was even sure that the Olympians were going to play
the real reaction
with the
from
NHL.
T-Bone was, hey, Ferrario, who the hell is this guy?
Actually, Alex's reaction was like, I jumped out of my seat when Detroit took Nate Danielson because I was hoping that the Blues would draft Dalibor Dvorsky. Whoa! Anyway, Dvorsky has that second-line center potential. I don't think he's got number 1 center potential in him. Maybe you do after seeing him in the Olympics or seeing him thus far, but Dalibor Dvorsky has just shown in this Olympic play, and I'll be really curious to see how he looks in elimination play, that he can raise his game in big moments. And that's where you really start to see certain players shine. When you go to a big stage like this against big competition and you come away with more points per game than what anybody else does on that roster, with the exception of Slafkovsky. So for me, I've kind of always thought he's got second-line potential in him, but some of this does fall into the power play, to where it's a lot of power play numbers versus the even strength numbers.
Yeah, I think it has made me kind of dream a little bit on him. I still don't really know what his ceiling is, and I think that's fine when you're 20 years old. But the reason that I've been impressed is because of what you've talked about in this stage, right? And Joey had kind of brought this up with us. I think it was Joey with us last Thursday of, man, when you go over to the Olympics and you're playing for your country and you're the only center that is an NHL player, and I get it, he's only on the 3rd line, and he's been on the 3rd line for most of the Olympics. There's pressure that comes with that, and you're going against the best of the best, and you're able to produce like this. Now, yes, most of it is on the power play where it's 5-on-4, but he doesn't look out of place. And I think that's been the biggest surprise for me this season, based on what we heard last year, where it was, hey, he's down in the minor leagues, he's still trying to figure it out, but it's mostly on the defensive side of the game. We're not questioning the offense, it's defensively. And he hasn't looked out of place at the Olympics. I haven't really felt he's looked out of place at all defensively here at the NHL level, maybe early on at the beginning when he got called up here this year. I think he's looked fine from a defensive perspective. So, yeah, watching him in the Olympics is letting me want to dream on him a little bit more on what he is doing. The one thing I am curious to find out as he continues to grow, and we'll see what it looks like in the second half this year in the NHL, is what you talked about. Is he going to be able to do this at 5-on-5? Because right now he's becoming kind of more of a power play merchant, to where you look at his numbers in the NHL. He's basically doing with the Blues what he's doing in the Olympics, which is, I think it's like 45% of his points are coming on the power play. It's where most of his goal production is coming from so far this season. And that's what it's been for Slovakia in the Olympics. 2 of his assists have come on the power play. That last goal that you heard when we returned from break was a goal on a power play that helped them get the bye based on goal differential. If he is just a power play specialist that plays second-line center and is sound offensively, that would be a win in my opinion for the Blues. But there's not many guys that I can think of that really fit that mold. So he's going to have to improve offensively at 5-on-5. But watching him and how he doesn't look out of place in these moments in the regular season and now at the Olympics, I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to grow into that second-line center role.
Yeah, and like the power play versus even strength, I'm not concerned about that because I think the even strength offense begins and continues to grow once you understand the game as a centerman. Like his numbers aren't popping off the page offensively at 5-on-5 because there's so much more that centermen have to do than just put up points. Like they've got to worry about the defensive side of the game, worry about covering for defensemen, and think about doing that when you're a younger player on a team that has a coach who's defensive mindset. So Dvorsky is never going to be a guy that can push 80, 90 points, but I think the more points you score on the power play, the more your even strength numbers pick up because of the confidence that you're building. You asked me last night to try and brainstorm it. The only guy, because you're right, centermen just aren't power play specialists. It's typically 5-on-5, and you're really good at power play as well. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was the one that came to mind for me. Nugent-Hopkins, in the first 4 seasons, because I'm not going to judge him with you when he had Connor McDavid with him, because honestly, Connor McDavid makes everybody better. But his 4 seasons with Edmonton, when he was drafted, and I believe he was drafted first overall, he had scored a total of, if you isolate it to 82 games, 59 points. And of those 59 points, 23 of them came on the power play. So almost 50% of your points came on the power play. Like if I told you that every single season Dalibor Dvorsky was going to give you 20 goals, 40 assists, be good defensively for you, and be really good on the power play, anybody would sign up for that because that's 100%. A 10th overall pick. Like it's not a good return for Nugent-Hopkins early on because that was a first overall pick. Dalibor Dvorsky would be a great return on that, and I can't wait to see what he looks like when he returns from the Olympics. Speaking of first overall picks, T-Bone, you were looking at kind of how things have played out in terms of the top goal scorers in the in the Olympic tournament right now, and like just going through these goal scoring leaders, I'll list some of these guys off for you. Macklin Celebrini, Tim Stützle, Austin Matthews, Timo Meier, Slavkovsky. You know what these guys have in common? Connor McDavid's up there as well in points. They're all drafted first overall. And then if you go through a second overall picks in the last 10 years, there's some good ones. You're talking about Andrei Svechnikov. You're talking about a couple of others that the jury is still out on. But you're also talking about some busts that fall in there. Does it feel like the Blues need to get a top pick to justify having a season like this, or does a second overall pick still suffice for people?
I still would feel good about a second overall pick because I think this is kind of more of a one-off on what we're seeing of late over the last 10 years on what those number 2 overall picks are. Typically, these guys that are 1 and 2 are complete studs. I mean, you just mentioned the top leading scorers. I mean, if you could get a McDavid, a Celebrini, a Slavkovsky, a Crosby, a Matthews, and McKinnon, those are all number 1 picks that are top 6 in scoring in the Olympics. Yeah, that's the kind of talent you're going to get a return. And all those guys, by the way, that I just mentioned through here, changed the fate of their franchise, right? McDavid, you mentioned Nugent-Hopkins. Nugent-Hopkins was drafted number 1 overall before McDavid, and the Oilers didn't become the Oilers till McDavid arrived.
And Draisaitl.
100%. Celebrini changed the fate of the San Jose Sharks within a year, right? They weren't good last year, but you saw right away, whoa, that guy is a stud. Slavkovsky's not the number 1 driver for the Canadians, but he's going to become a really good player. Crosby did this in Pittsburgh way back when T-Bone was maybe in diapers still. Austin Matthews did this with the Maple Leafs. McKinnon did this with the Colorado Avalanche. You get the number 1 overall pick, a lot of these guys end up becoming franchise-altering players. And number 2 overall, that can occur as well. So, no, I don't think it's just do you get the number 1 pick or does it end up the season ends up being a bust. 1, 2, potentially even 3, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I stop at 2. I think if you get below 2, you're going to be drafting a defenseman or a forward that's not ready for the NHL right away. I think you've got to get Stenberg or McKenna to put yourself in a position to have success right away. Like, there's a narrative going around on social media that the second overall picks are typically busts. Let me list some of these guys off for you. Leo Carlson, Simone Nemec, Matty Beniers, Quentin Byfield, Capo Caco, Nolan Patrick, Patrick Laine. Those sound like busts, and that's in the last 10 years. But let me go beyond that. Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, Barkov, Gabe Landeskog, Tyler Seguin, Victor Hedman, Drew Doughty, Jordan Staal. You can get a really good player at second overall. It just comes down to the draft, and I think this draft is the one where you need to get a first or a second overall pick, and it'll be fascinating to see kind of what the Blues look like in the second half of the season. I heard somewhere on a podcast over the weekend, a draft analyst said Stenberg is doing something in the Swedish Hockey League that neither of the Sedin brothers have done. Yeah. So kind of paints a picture of what you could be getting in that position. Coming up at 15 minutes, we're going to hit the rewind and give you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan. So stick around. In about 15 minutes, we'll get to that. But coming up next is JJ Wetherholt, a lock to be on the Cardinals opening day roster. We'll wrap up with that here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a 4-pack of passes to the St. Louis Boat and Fishing Show, taking place Friday, February 20th through Sunday, February 22nd at the Americas Center. It's a great time for the whole family, including the Bobbers in a Boat giveaway, where you can guess the number of bobbers for your chance to win a huge prize. Find all the info and your chance to win free passes for the St. Louis Boat and Fishing Show, February 20th through the 22nd, right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
Before you trust someone with your money, make sure they're properly registered and qualified to give investment advice. Before you invest, get the facts. I'm Denny Hoskins, Missouri Secretary of State. Our office regulates investing and works to protect investors. Call the Missouri Securities Hotline at 800-721-7996 or visit MissouriProtectsInvestors.com. Paid for by the Missouri Investor Education and Protection Fund. This is a public service announcement.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
First full squad workouts getting underway. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. MLB spring training has arrived with all 30 teams gathering at camps in Florida as well as Arizona. Cardinals righty Michael McGreevy will continue refining his arsenal from Jupiter.
You're in the big leagues. It was like, wow, we really need to prepare our body come spring. Let's not peak too early. There's no reason to blow a gasket. In spring, we don't need to show 95 to 97 on the first day. It's spring training's a ramp up, so we don't crash and burn in July and August, so we can pitch into October.
Number 36's complete TMA chat earlier this morning, now available on 101ESPN.com. Ice-wise, Team Canada women's hockey currently gearing up for puck drop against Switzerland. The Americans dismantled Sweden a few minutes ago, 5-0. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. A little bit of Cardinals news to pass along. Derek Gould tweeting this out, our Cardinals insider for the Post-Dispatch. The Cardinals have claimed pitcher Zach Kent off waivers from the Texas Rangers. Zach Kent was on the Cardinals roster. They had claimed him off of waivers from the Cleveland Guardians in January. And then, T-Bone, we were talking, they made the trade for Justin Brule, who's another bullpen arm. And then when they made that move, they had to DFA Zach Kent. He got claimed off of waivers by Texas. They obviously like him enough, so they claimed him again as he is back with the team. It's a right-handed pitcher, 6'3", 27 years old. And in this move, they DFA Brian Ramos, who is a third baseman who last couple of seasons have played with the Chicago White Sox. And this is interesting in the sense, T-Bone, because you were telling me there were some projections that had Ramos as one of the bench bats for the Cardinals this season.
Yeah, some people thought maybe he'd have a chance to maybe be like the fifth infielder on the roster for the Cardinals, or right-handed bat that's got a little bit of versatility, and used to be a fringe top 100 prospect when he was in the White Sox system, when he was signed out of Cuba, but just never really clicked for him. Cardinals took him as just a flyer, as a guy that'd be like a depth infielder. So it's a little surprising to see them make this move, but it just goes to show they must really like Zach Kent.
Yeah.
And they didn't really apparently want to get rid of him then the last time when they made that trade for Justin Brule from Cleveland. They saw him on waivers, said, okay, well, we'll take our flyer on him again. Why not take a chance, add another arm that's interesting to the mix. It's got a decent slider, which has been like the thing for the Cardinals. It's kind of their MO for what they're looking for now. It's just an interesting move considering that Ramos was going to have a chance to maybe fight for a spot on the opening day roster. Maybe he clears waivers and they get to keep him, and he'll accept that quote-unquote assignment for right now to the minors, and then still have an opportunity in camp to make it. But we'll see.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it just they obviously thought that they're maybe Jose Firmino or whatever, but they love the Zach Kent. I mean, hasn't been a whole lot of time at the major league level. I think I'm more fascinated by all these arms that they have brought in for the bullpen. You're just going to have a lot of them. It's going to be a lot of moving parts this season, which makes sense when you're a rebuilding team and you're just trying to put as many bodies in there as possible. So this is some audio that we have from Ali Marmol, Cardinals manager from the Post-Dispatch, talking about JJ Wetherholt and how ready he looks for the major leagues.
This is a guy we're all excited about. He's obviously, the skill set's there. We've talked about that part of it quite a bit. He was challenged with being able to do some things defensively, and he's worked really hard at that as well. His overall game is pretty elite. And I've said it on several different shows and just talking to our writers. The most impressive thing is his personality and overall demeanor and how he handles himself. It's pretty impressive. This is, especially for his age, the way he carries himself, the way he goes about his work, the way he communicates is something that I've really enjoyed. You put that together with his skill set, and it's pretty neat. So he's very close. He's going to be competing for a position with us, and he'll have every opportunity to do so.
Again, that's Ali Marmol, some audio courtesy of the Post-Dispatch. I don't think he's competing with anybody. I think it's a lock that he's got this unless he just completely does not compete at spring training. I mean, Tamar Scher of KMOV had the video out today of Wetherholt at second base with Nolan Gorman at third base. To me, that's your starting infield on opening day. You're going to have Gorman at third, Winn at short, Burleson at first, and Wetherholt at second. So JC's going to probably be your left fielder, and you've got a young roster that's starting the season. That's it. It's weird to say because he's 22 years old and he only played 47 games down in Memphis last year. I don't know what else he would really prove to you in Memphis. He had a 978 OPS last season, showcased his power with 10 home runs and 14 doubles. He hit .314, on-base percentage of .416. There's no other place but major leagues for JJ Wetherholt at the start of this season. And frankly, hearing Ollie talk about it goes to show you how confident he's in it.
Yeah, I would say he's as close as a lock as it can be for the St. Louis Cardinals. I would say like my percentage chance of him making the opening day roster is at like 95% chance. And the only 5% chance that I have in there that he's not is if he just looks overmatched
or he
in
gets
spring
hurt.
training or he gets hurt. But I'm not expecting that because even last year in the small sample size you saw of him in spring training, the dude went Oppo Taco for a home run. Like, I mean, he's probably going to do very well in spring training for the opportunities he's going to be given. And I don't think it's a coincidence that today, the first or second official day of the full team being there for workouts, that the infield around the horn was Gorman at third, Winn at short, Wetherholt at second, and Burley at first.
Yeah, I mean,
that screams the infield.
The only person he realistically is competing against would be Saggese.
Yeah, Saggese, and I wouldn't even call that a competition.
I don't either because they have one an opening in left field and two, I think Saggese is just a bench bat.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those to where it is more of if Wetherholt doesn't earn the job than it is, of course, that he gets beat out from it. It would have to be he looks completely outmatched in spring training, and I'm not expecting that. If that occurs, then we can have that conversation. And what do you do with him? Do you send him down to AAA to start the year? It's not so much about stuff that he can learn from, because I agree with you. There's not a lot probably for him to learn from, but more so of, okay, looked a little outmatched at the Major League spring training. Just try and get the confidence back for a little bit there in AAA and see if we can get him back there. But I don't think they're going to do any kind of service manipulation, and it's probably driven by the fact that if he becomes a Rookie of the Year candidate, you get an extra draft pick. Yep. And when you're in a rebuild, you know what sounds great? An extra draft pick. So I expect he's going to be here. I would say it's a 95% chance he's your opening day second baseman.
We had this conversation last week. I wanted to extend it a little bit because I figured this would be relevant to at least discuss if JJ Wetherholt has a spring that is similar to Jordan Walker's meteoric 2023, right? We knew it was a foregone conclusion. He would, A, make the opening day roster and maybe on opening day hit in a position of consequence in the lineup. That latter thing didn't ultimately come to fruition. But if he really opens your eyes, guys, throughout the spring and is mashing the baseball, one, does that influence in any way where you would place him? And two, how high could he ascend in that order come opening day?
I mean, right now I'd have him plugged in as like my two-hole hitter, which might be a ton of pressure, but if he performs, I think it's there. Otherwise, you're putting him at 6-7.
Yeah, I think he's probably, I figured you just did that on purpose.
Damn right I did. I got like 15 minutes before it's vacation.
He's like
mode.
second or fifth in the lineup, probably. Yeah. What'll be interesting is I've brought this up before. You know, Ollie's typically someone that likes to just kind of get a guy lower in the lineup, let him get a little comfortable before you start to put him in higher situations. He does this as a bullpen too, right? We'll see a guy like Riley O'Brien when he was first with the Cardinals start in low leverage spots. Then we slowly start to work into a little bit higher leverage. And then if we see that he handles that well, boom, now he's going to be that guy for you. I don't know that they'll necessarily approach it that way this year, just because there's not a lot of guys that you're looking at that say, okay, well, that guy deserves to be at this spot in the lineup. Because Mason Wynn's probably not a leadoff hitter on a contending team. He might be your leadoff hitter this year. Same with Victor Scott. Victor Scott's not really a leadoff hitter on a contending team, but they might experiment with it this year. If this was a team that had a bunch of veterans on it and they had expectations of winning 90 games, I would say, yeah, I would expect him to hit lower in the batting order in that like 6 to 8 range. I'm not expecting that this year. This year is about the runway for guys. It's about growing on the job. So I think right away they wouldn't be afraid to put him in the second spot or the fifth spot. And I don't even know if it's so much what his numbers look like in spring. It's more of what's his process look like at the plate? What's his process look like behind the scenes? Some of the stuff we won't see. If they like that, but he hits like 160 at spring training, I could still see where they put him in the 2-hole for the opening day lineup.
Yeah, and Walker hit 7th right off the bat, but you were talking about an April opener against Toronto, then a season in which you still featured Goldschmidt, Arenado, and O'Neill, if I'm not mistaken. Different set of circumstances.
What a time to be alive it was.
Blast from the past.
Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Again, if you missed it, a little Cardinals news. They claimed Zach Kent off of waivers from the Texas Rangers, who was previously on the Cardinals, but then he was placed on waivers. He was claimed by the Cleveland Guardians. So, they claimed him off of waivers. I don't know. He was a Cardinal before, got claimed again. He's back with the team. We'll take a break, come back. We'll give you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan, and we'll rewind it here on 101 ESPN.
College basketball is on ESPN tonight. Duke and Syracuse. Pregame at 5:30, tip-off at 6. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, now's your chance to win a pair of Zach Bryan tickets on Saturday, March 7th at the Dome at America's Center. If you are texter 101 to our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646, earlier in the junk drawer, we talked about a story on The Athletic of the difficult jobs as a coach in sports. We, as a group on the show, said the toughest one should be X team. If you can tell us what that team is, and Texter 101, you'll get the pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan on March 7th at the Dome at America Center. Find all the ticket details and a bonus chance to win free tickets to Zach Bryan right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, which is powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. That's where you'll be able to check out the podcast after the show today. Podcast always sponsored by Schaefer Door Company. You can also watch it over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN ST. Our studio cams brought to you by Air Alliance Team. On a rewind, guys, let's just rewind it with the news that we talked a little bit ago. Zach Kent claimed off of waivers, reacquired by the Cardinals from the Texas Rangers as spring training continues to roll on. Storylines continue to come out, including a couple of pitchers being shut down. We didn't talk today. Henderson was one that I know a lot of people were excited about, but they add another bullpen arm, and they just continue to churn through different names to see who can stick with the team that's rebuilding. T-Bone.
Yeah, that's what you want to do for bullpen arms, especially. Just keep throwing people up against the wall, see what sticks. And they're doing this with Zach Kent. They clearly seem to see something that they like. So I have no problem with the move that they're willing to take more shots on it. It is a little surprising because I thought Ramos was going to have a chance to compete for a spot on the opening day roster. But it goes to show they have more faith in Zach Kent maybe as a guy that they could play into their bullpen rather than what Ramos would be for them off the bench.
On the hockey side of things, Jordan Binnington, Colton Parayko, Dalibor, Dvorsky get the bye for the quarterfinals. Broberg's team Sweden will be taking on Latvia tomorrow, and Pew Suter with Switzerland will be taking on Italy tomorrow at 5:10. But the big one, of course, is going to be Wednesday when the elimination games kick off. And the Blues actually start practice tomorrow because their eligibility to practice begins tomorrow, so they'll be back on the ice tomorrow. So we'll find out about Thomas and Holloway as those injuries kind of subsided them before the break. And then finally, before we go, Bradford, your Missouri Tigers just the bed when they needed to take down Texas and keep their hopes alive. You got 90 seconds to tell us why they're not a bubble team.
Wow. It simply means, guys, okay, yes, you had the 2-game winning streak on the road halted, but that is going to make the victory on Wednesday that much sweeter in Como against a ranked Vanderbilt team that, mind you, over the weekend had a nice win in its own right. Yeah, knocking off Texas A&M, those Aggies, and authoritatively so. Look, there were problems. There have been problems all season, but who's going to be able to step up beyond Mark Mitchell and Jaden Stone? You saw it on Saturday night against a solid but not great Texas team. How do you recover? How do you find somebody else as well in that second unit other than the main 7 to give you contributions? Because that's going to be crucial. You're talking about Vanderbilt on Wednesday. You're talking about the first of 2 matchups against the ranked Arkansas Razorbacks on Saturday as well on the road. I'm intrigued to see the response. I'm intrigued to see if Illinois as well can keep it going after a nice 20-point victory over Indiana yesterday.
I wouldn't worry about those. Illinois slew moved on.
Well, I'm just telling you, I'm not going to worry
Mizzou's
about it.
got 2 more wins in them, and they'll be watching the tournament once it kicks off on March. Guys, always fun. I am going to be out for the next 5 days. I'll be back next Wednesday, I think it is. I don't know. I'm going on vacation before the hockey season picks back up. BK will be back in tomorrow with plenty of Disney World stories for Tanner Hendrickson, who has been holding down the fort along with Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Have a great rest of your week. I'll talk to you next week. BK and T-Bone and Bradford will be back with you tomorrow. Fastlane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
The Redbird Report. Your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com.